see a number of participants still entering into the room here. So we'll give it another 60 seconds and then we'll be underway. Well, once again, welcome to the Ocean Protection Council meeting on this day, December 7th. Happy holidays, happy almost New Year. A lot to cover here today, a lot of good work and progress to report on. But first, let's turn it over to OPC Deputy Director Jen Eckerly to call our roll.
Thank you. Secretary Crowfoot.
Here.
Secretary Blumenfeld.
Present.
Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis.
Present.
Councilmember Diamond.
Present.
And Councilmember Brown.
Present.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. And our OPC Director, Mark Gold, is actually serving on a jury as we speak. And so big thanks to Jen for serving in that OPC leadership role today. As I said, we have a lot to cover today. The main decision we have before us is dispersing a certain amount of Prop 1 funding for projects that will be provided to communities entitled to environmental justice. And this will represent the first time OPC has targeted a funding solicitation to such communities. We're really excited about that. We're also excited to hear from our colleague Jen Eckerly on an update for all things related to our strategic plan and specifically the implementation of our strategic plan. And of course, we'll have time to listen and hear from members of the public and stakeholders. And I'll share in just a moment the process for that public comment. But first, let me acknowledge the leadership of our Lieutenant Governor on all things related to ocean protection and for her service on the OPC over the last year. By statute, this seat that she sits in switches between our Lieutenant Governor for California and our state's controller. And so this will be the last meeting that Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis will serve here on the OPC for a bit of time. And recognizing that, I wanted to provide her an opportunity to share thoughts on OPC's work and specifically to her leading role in California's participation in the recent Conference of Parties in Glasgow, Scotland. Lieutenant Governor.
Well, thank you so much, Secretary Crowfoot. It's really terrific to be here. Another virtual year for us at OPC, but behind the scenes and every day, the staff is so committed and active in carrying out the mission of the OPC. So yes, as you mentioned, I did represent California and the governor at COP26 in Glasgow a few weeks ago. It was an incredible honor and privilege to be able to carry the message of California to Glasgow and talk about all of the incredibly important work that we do here. And of course, on behalf of the state of California, to sign the Edinboro Declaration as the first subnational government in the United States to do so. And you may have seen I signed it with Scotland's External Affairs Secretary Angus Robertson on November 3rd in Glasgow. You know, California has long been a leader at the subnational government level on many environmental issues. And the Edinboro Declaration is really just the last chapter in our collaboration with global partners to promote a more sustainable future. The vision of the declaration, for those of you who haven't been following it, is that protecting our rich global biodiversity requires urgent action by subnational governments and aligns with California's efforts, such as the 30-30 pledge to protect California's diverse ecosystems. So it was really natural for us to get on board and to do this and to exercise our leadership early. So I really do want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the leadership and the hard work demonstrated by the OPC staff. Without the efforts of the OPC, California might not have been in a position to sign the Edinboro Declaration while we were in Glasgow. It is no small thing. These efforts cumulatively are extremely important, and our early action sets the framework for future action moving these kinds of priorities to the point where they are adopted far more widely. And then maybe Secretary Crowfoot, if I can just say a couple of words about Glasgow overall. You know, people are calling it Paris Plus. There are those who try to disparage and say, well, was it enough? And all of these. Well, the fact of the matter is that it builds on the work of Paris. There were renewed commitments to moving toward a global carbon-free future. Climate change is being experienced not just by countries like the United States or states like California, where we saw 4% of the state burn last year and 4 of the 5 most devastating wildfires. But around the world, the impacts of climate change are now to the point where we are so far beyond denial and really very much into this question of coping with the impacts of climate change and a warming climate, and also coming together at a far more recognized level that it's going to require global cooperation in order to be able to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the decade. So having the United States there was, to me, really the top headline. President Biden was there with many cabinet level representatives, including Secretary of State, Secretary Antony Blinken, who's someone who I've had the opportunity to work with quite a bit in the past. Of course, Special Envoy John Kerry was there, really advancing climate as a standalone issue. And it was, I think, underreported that in the midst of COP26, Secretary Kerry was able to get a renewed commitment from China to come back to the table and to advance climate solutions. It's very, very important. And of course, the National Climate Advisor, Gina McCarthy, who is really just such a powerful voice for combating climate change. And I had the opportunity to sit on a panel with Special Envoy Kerry and with Advisor McCarthy. But the overall message that California brought, and of course, it wasn't just me, and again, I was so honored to represent the governor and to lead the delegation, but we had one of the largest presence of California representatives, as you very well know, Secretary Crowfoot, that we've had in a long time. There were at least 15 members of the legislature who were there, along with so many representatives of the Newsom administration. And our message this year, building on our work over decades with bipartisan leadership on combating climate change, but our message this year is that it is time to take the solutions and the policies that have put in place and scale up. And our subnational leadership and the power of our innovation economy, the power of our budget surplus to invest in the ability to really implement on a large scale in California, the innovation that we have already been able to deliver. This is the next frontier, is scaling up in a very significant way in order to meet those 2045 goals. And let me just say that people look to us, not just to me, Secretary Crowfoot, I know you felt it as well. And if Jared is on yet, certainly he's so well respected in these circles, and he delivered this message and felt it as well, which is that the California story and California's leadership is so widely recognized that everywhere we go, people want to talk to us. And that is something that I hope that all Californians know, and the message that we can bring back is what we mean as the symbol in the world to meaningful change and innovation and policy that will move the dial and make a difference. So I came away from the experience energized by my conversations and more committed than ever to work collaboratively with the global community to help solve this crisis. And let me just also note that there were a series of multilateral agreements on issues including zero emission vehicles, forest protection, and methane reduction. These give us a lot of things to think about and work on as we get ready for COP27. So again, thank you all for your partnership. It is such an honor and privilege to work with so many leaders in California on these issues. Let me just also say Mary Nichols was there in Glasgow. Again, just continuing to do the everyday work that she can as a real icon in this space on behalf of our state. And there's a great deal of work to be done, but California is positioned going forward to be a real leader in this space. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And that's very helpful context for our discussions here today. And I'll share your observation that both the oceans and so-called nature-based solutions are more central in this international discussion on climate action. When we came back from Glasgow, very recently, we held a speaker series specifically on sea level rise and what it means to California. And I have to say, you know, the evolving science continues to be really sobering in terms of the challenges ahead of us. We heard from a research scientist from NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory of what is accelerating sea level rise in California and what it means to the number of days that we'll have these peak tide or king tide flooding events in coming decades. So I'm really energized by the work we're able to share in an international setting like the Conference of Parties. But I think we also recognize that we are in a race against time. And so the work of OPC and its partner entities across the world has never been more important than now. I want to ask if any other, welcome Senator Allen. Great to have you with us. And just want to ask if any other council members want to provide any high-level update before we dive into the work before us today.
Secretary Crowfoot.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I just thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for your work and all the whole delegation that went from California to Glasgow. It was really an impressive and important event. I just want to acknowledge the work of the state agencies involved in the Hollister Ranch Access Program. The Coastal Commission held a workshop on the draft access program and received comment from the public as well as the working group that's been formed to assist on development of the program, as well as the Hollister Ranch Homeowners Association. And it was just a really impressive range of comments and the development of the plan. I'm just super pleased to say is moving forward, and we can hopefully look forward to beginning the implementation in early next year. It was really a great thing. Thanks.
Well, thanks for that. I know that was the product of a whole lot of work and discussion, and coastal access, including at Hollister Ranch, is a critical priority for no doubt all of us, including who some of us work for Governor Newsom. So thank you for that acknowledgement. All right, let's jump into the work in front of us. I want to share just a little bit for those who are joining us outside the council, how you can play a role in this meeting, and specifically about public comment. We'll be taking public comment after items 4 through 6, and those are specific items with public comment, as well as item 7, which is if you have comments not related to those previous agenda topics. I'll invite public comment after each of these items. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand and our colleagues will unmute you, announce your name, and you'll be able to provide comment to the council. If you've called into the meeting via telephone, press #2 in order to raise your hand. And depending on how you have accessed the meeting, you may also need to unmute yourself. In order to be able to hear from everybody and get through the meeting, public comment is limited to 2 minutes each, and there'll be a timer on screen as usual to track your allotted time. Anybody interested in providing comment on a specific item, please do raise your hand by the end of the initial agenda presentation. That will ensure that you're in the queue. Sometimes hands raised after that time don't get placed in the queue for public comment. So again, if you want to comment on items 4, 5, or 6, or unrelated to those topics, agenda item 7, please do either raise your virtual hand if you're joining by video conference, or press #2 by the end of the initial presentation for the item. So next we'll hear from, again, Deputy Director Jen Eckerly for the report from the Executive Director / Deputy Director. Jen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Secretary Crowfoot, and Lieutenant Governor. Thank you so much for those really inspirational comments. I appreciated them very much. So I'm just going to provide a few highlights here now, because you're going to hear a lot more from me under item 5. So there were a few work plans that are serving as a roadmap for action, both on marine protected areas and sea level rise, that are nearing completion or finalized in the last couple of weeks. First, the Marine Protected Area Leadership Team just completed its 2021-2025 work plan, which identifies strategic priorities and key actions that advance the state's MPA management program through collaboration between state, federal, and tribal governments and nonprofit partners. Key outcomes from this work plan include implementing recommendations from the upcoming decadal management review to ensure that adaptive management of the MPA network is advanced. The work plan also identifies opportunities to ensure consistent and sustained funding for MPA management program, and integrating MPA climate and fisheries monitoring efforts to support sustainable fisheries. So really looking at that integration between the Marine Life Protection Act and the Marine Life Management Act. That work plan was approved in November and will be made publicly available in early next year. Second, the Sea Level Rise Leadership Team met yesterday to finalize its work plan, which will coordinate state action to build resilience to sea level rise. This work plan included 80 actions with associated timelines and metrics for success to operationalize and implement shared principles over the next several years. Final edits are underway, and that work plan will be anticipated for public release in sometime spring of next year. I also want to take a moment to highlight that last month, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration announced the proposed designation of a Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary off California's central coast. This sanctuary would protect marine life and sacred Chumash sites, and would be the first sanctuary to focus on Indigenous culture and history as a primary core value, along with protecting ocean habitat. The boundaries of this proposed sanctuary do not overlap with the 399 square mile call area being considered for potential offshore wind development, providing for the continued parallel progress on two important priorities for California and the nation. And on the topic of sanctuaries, we look forward to working with NOAA to evaluate how to achieve greater conservation within California's sanctuaries to meet state and federal 30 by 30 goals. I'll talk more about our efforts on the state's 30 by 30 initiative later in the meeting. I have a few personnel highlights I'd like to share with the council and the public now. In November, we were thrilled to welcome Caitlin Kailua to the OPC team as our new water quality program manager. Caitlin comes to OPC with experience in water quality regulation and policy, equitable water access, coastal adaptation planning, and federal ocean policy. Prior to joining OPC, Caitlin served as policy manager for the California Coastkeeper Alliance, and previously as a 2017 Canal Sea Grant Fellow with NOAA. Caitlin received her JD and environmental law certificate from the University of California, Davis School of Law. Caitlin has jumped into the deep end already and is helping finalize the draft state microplastic strategy as we speak. We are sad to report that this is the last council meeting for our 2021 Sea Grant Fellows. Dr. Kat Ph.D., who has been working with OPC's climate change team, leading efforts on ocean acidification and hypoxia, carbon sequestration, wetland and eelgrass research and restoration, and our Prop 68 mini-series, will be leaving OPC next Thursday. In the new year, she will start an appointment as assistant researcher at UC Santa Barbara in the Marine Science Institute. In this role, Kat will work with other principal investigators to oversee the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station, or SONG's, mitigation monitoring program. Her time will be split between artificial reef and between the artificial reef and restored coastal wetlands, where the team is continuing to assess whether the mitigation projects are meeting performance standards required by their coastal development permit. Sandra Fogg, who's been working with our MPA Marine Biodiversity team on the MPA management program, 30 by 30 and sustainable aquaculture, and sharing her amazing design and photography skills, will be leaving us in mid-January to embark on some international travel. We wish Kat and Sandy the best of luck in their next adventures, and we're so grateful for their dedication and their contributions to our work. Our 2022 fellows, Elise Goen and Megan Williams, will begin in early January. And finally, I just want to share that OPC is hiring an administration and finance analyst to provide critical support for our contracts and grants administration, accounting, and other administrative duties. Applications for this position are due on December 10th, and you can find more information about the position and how to apply on our website. And with that, thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thanks so much, Jen. I might just put an emphasis on a few of the points. I mean, first of all, huge thanks to Kat and Sandy. The Sea Grant Fellowship Program is incredible, and it's remarkable to see young leaders, young scientists go through that fellowship program and then ultimately become, leaders that we're hearing from either at OPC or in sister organizations. So big thanks for their contribution. I just want to emphasize just how excited I am about the sea level rise work plan. That's a really boring title for something that's going to be exciting, which is this integrated set of actions that state agencies are going to take to prepare for and help communities adapt to sea level rise. I talk a lot about, 5 climate-driven threats that we face in California: wildfire, drought, flooding, extreme heat, and sea level rise. And some of these threats have really strong integrated action plans to address them, including our water resilience portfolio and our wildfire resilience action plan. And really, this sea level rise work plan is going to be that integrated set of actions that state agencies are taking to help prepare California for sea level rise. And I note that the legislature in particular has really stepped up as leaders on sea level rise, helping to allocate, along with the governor, almost $750 million in the last budget towards sea level rise and coastal resilience. And so I'm excited for us to share this publicly this spring and really get input on the actions that we're planning to take across agencies. This plan will be a living document, and I think legislators and other stakeholders will find it to be hopefully an integrated, coherent approach around what agencies are doing. The other last point I'd make is that point that Jen made around the MPA, the Marine Protected Areas Work Plan for the next 5 years. Excited that we continue to be focused on maintaining our world-renowned network of underwater parks, and that 2022 is a really important year. And that's when our Department of Fish and Game, Department of Fish and Wildlife, I should say Fish and Game Commission and Department of Fish and Wildlife are conducting this decadal review to understand both the impact and the results of the first 10 years of the state's MPA program. And we've been very clear that we wouldn't consider subsequent changes or evolution of the MPA until we have that decadal review. So that's going to be really important, and we'll be hearing more about that at the OPC. Other questions or comments from Jen's report? Then over to Liz at the Ocean Science Trust.
Thank you, Chair Crowfoot. Council members, as always, great to be here with you today. I was also fortunate to spend time in Glasgow during COP26, and I thought I would place my science updates today sort of in the context of my reflections from there. It was indeed so inspiring to see how coasts and oceans are being lifted to a more significant role in the dialogue, but I did feel a challenge. The science and the academic research community were somewhat being relegated to the role of raising the alarm and deepening our understanding of the problem we face, characterizing it in ever more intricate detail. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that is critically important, and I am so glad to see science and scientists playing that role as compared to recent years past. But at the same time, I think we have an opportunity and a fabulous opportunity here in California to more fully tap into the potential and the aspiration of the science and research community to not just deliver new knowledge, but policy relevant, actionable solutions. And as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, to scale those up and provide roadmaps for how we scale those up. So, my brief time in both Scotland and London during my trip was a chance to catch up on with colleagues who are working on climate adaptation in the UK and Europe, who I found were really innovating around ways to invest in science to deliver solutions alongside knowledge advancement and convene the needed expertise beyond and with natural scientists for solution design and implementation. So back here in California, I think we have important pieces in place, and then there's more to do, of course. I really deeply value and wanted to highlight, what it means to me, and I think for California, to be here today, representing both an independent science partner to the state and a convener of your science advisory team. Just briefly, at your last meeting, I updated you on the new SAT vision with rapid response committees of scientists organized around your strategic plan goals to mobilize and really speed up the process of delivering useful science advice. And on behalf of the SAT, I express here our readiness to engage and support action in 2022 and to accelerate on solutions. Meanwhile, as we scope that work, I wanted to also briefly bring to your attention 3 other initiatives at Ocean Science Trust that, with private funding, are aiming to push the boundaries on how we mobilize the science community in support of the critical urgent need that Secretary Crowfoot mentioned. And each of these is cross-cutting in support of OPC strategic plan goals. First, I think we can continue to broaden what expertise disciplines are engaged in solution development. As one example, we have a project underway right now that is bringing environmental justice, equity experts, and community leaders together with engineers and natural scientists to develop recommendations on how to center equity goals such as siting, access, jobs in nature-based solutions, specifically in this case in living shorelines. But I think there's opportunity to continue to apply that same kind of multi-sector, multidisciplinary approach to other issues and challenges. And we look forward to sharing the learning with you all on that project in spring of next year. Second of 3, I think we can invest more in career pathways. Just our own founding legislation at Ocean Science Trust has a mandate to support graduate education. And we're deeply committed to future ocean science workforce development. We know that solutions to climate challenges will rest upon the shoulders and will only come from a workforce that really represents California's diversity. So we're implementing an initiative to bring together faculty, students, and academic professionals to share ideas and bright spots of experience from their work and their commitment to advancing equity and inclusion in the ocean science, the academic community. We look forward to sharing about the learning from that in mid next year. And honestly, a little bit more about the role and responsibility I think we can all take on to illuminate new career pathways, provide effective mentorship for students, and invest in early career professionals and recent graduates. And finally, I just wanted to highlight that I think, to state possibly the obvious, we also need more actionable science in the hands of more decision makers. And just as with you, California council members, California lawmakers are grappling with increasingly complex sets of issues, choices, and challenges. And we're really proud of the first year of our work to bring nonpartisan science advice and solutions directly to California legislature, members, committees, and staff. And I think a vibrant relationship with science that can span and connect the administration with the legislature can really only benefit our coast and ocean. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to share these quick updates. And while I admit I'm ready for this challenging pandemic year to wind down, but I am genuinely optimistic and determined to tackle the challenges and look forward to our continued partnership in 2022. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much, Liz. And I think I certainly agree with you, and I imagine we all agree with you. Science in action. We need our scientists to be right there along with us, helping us inform management decisions. And I think a lot of what OPC has done, and I think about the urchin removal as one effort, is demonstrating that it's not enough to simply understand the science and then go off and make decisions. We need science to be integrated into, our decisions, our management, our actions. So great points. Any follow-up for Liz? All right, then let's move on to item number 4, which is an action item. And it's consideration and approval of a disbursement of Prop 1 funds for projects that benefit communities entitled to environmental justice and to improve water quality. I'm personally really excited that we'll hear a summary of the 6 candidate projects that are being considered for funding. And we'll hear in a moment from our colleague, Maria Rodriguez, the Wetland Program Manager at OPC, about these projects. And then we'll invite members of the public to speak to these projects. And then ultimately we'll have council discussion and consideration of approval of these projects. So without further ado, Maria.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Crowfoot, council members, and members of the public. My name is Maria Rodriguez, and I'm the Wetlands Program Manager at OPC. And I also help lead our environmental justice and equity efforts. Today, I'll be presenting on action item number 4, consideration and approval of disbursement of Proposition 1 funds for projects that benefit communities entitled to environmental justice and improve coastal water quality. Before I start the presentation, I want to give a quick thanks to our entire staff, including former OPC colleague Holly Wire, who helped co-lead the Prop 1 program with me, and our summer interns who also provided support for this Prop 1 solicitation. All right, let's jump in. Next slide, please. So just some quick background on Proposition 1, also known as the Water Quality Supply and Infrastructure Act of 2014, which I'll also be referring to as Prop 1 throughout this presentation. Prop 1 was passed by voters in November 2014, and with this approval, OPC was granted $30 million for a competitive grant program for multi-benefit ecosystem and watershed protection and restoration projects in accordance with statewide priorities. Prop 1 is intended to fund projects to meet the goals of the Water Action Plan to provide more reliable water supplies, restore important species and habitat, and develop a more resilient and sustainably managed water system to better withstand inevitable and unforeseen pressures in the coming decades. OPC has had 4 solicitation rounds of Prop 1 funding. Rounds 1 through 3 were from 2015 to 2019. This solicitation is our 4th round of Prop 1 funding and intends to spend the remaining $7.5 million of OPC's Prop 1 funds. So it's also anticipated to be our last round of Prop 1 funds available. Next slide, please. For this round of Prop 1 funding, OPC developed a new solicitation, a coastal environmental justice grant program. In the next few slides, I'll provide an overview of the funding priorities for this solicitation, the priority areas mapped, applications received, and discuss the final recommended projects for award funding. Next slide, please. OPC's priorities for round 4 of Prop 1 funding are projects that will benefit communities entitled to environmental justice. Communities include disadvantaged and severely disadvantaged communities as defined by Prop 1, with an annual median income that is less than 80% of the statewide annual median household income, as well as California Native tribes and tribal governments, and communities that score above 80% on CalEnvire screen results. The solicitation calls for projects located in or near communities that improve water quality through restoration, habitat enhancement, and resilience to climate change. Additionally, all recommended projects implement strategic targets in goals 1, 2, and 3 of our strategic plan, specifically the following objectives. 1.1, build resiliency to sea level rise, coastal storms, erosion, and flooding. 2.2, enhance engagement with underserved communities. 2.3, improve coastal access. 3.1, protect and restore coastal and marine ecosystems. And 3.4, improve coastal and ocean water quality. Next slide, please. OPC staff developed a set of high priority geographies for Prop 1 projects based on our focus on communities. Prop 1 priority areas were derived from data from 2 state mapping tools, the California State Parks Community Fact Finder Map and the CalEnvire Screen Map. We developed an interactive web tool available on our Prop 1 webpage that shows the priority communities for the solicitation. Projects located within or adjacent to a priority community that are within 3 miles of the coast were strongly preferred. Next slide, please. We released the solicitation in March, and in late April, when the solicitation period closed, we received 41 applications totaling approximately 7.5 times the amount of funding available. Shown here is a map of the distribution of the proposals received and the general project types. Of the 41 proposals received, 20% consisted of implementation projects, 15% were planning, 46% were planning and design, and 20% were projects including all elements from planning and design to implementation. Next slide, please. 17 applicants were invited back to submit full proposals totaling approximately 2.3 times the amount of funding available. OPC staff evaluated and scored proposals through this competitive process and conducted virtual site visit interviews with the highest scoring proposals. Ultimately, 6 final projects were selected to bring forth today and recommend award funding through this grant program as follows. $1 million to the State Coastal Conservancy for the Redwood National and State Parks Visitor Center and Lower Prairie Creek Restoration Project. $1,276,951 to the Humboldt State University HSU Sponsored Programs Foundation, working in close partnership with the Wiyot Tribe for the Wiyot Tribe acquisition of coastal property for cultural and water quality protection. $804,000 to Marin Audubon Society for the Tusconia Marsh Restoration and Sea Level Rise Adaptation Project. $1,192,253 to the City of Watsonville for the Middle Struve Slough Water Quality and Habitat Improvement Project. $2,269,526 to Tree People for Wilmington Middle School and Community Green Infrastructure Project, and $957,000 to the City of National City for the Paradise Creek Wetland Extension and Park Creation Project. Next slide, please. The Redwood National and State Parks Visitor Center and Lower Prairie Creek Restoration Project is located in Humboldt County within Yurok tribal ancestral territory and in a severely disadvantaged community that includes the nearby town of Orick. This project is part of implementation of the larger 125-acre Redwood National and State Park Visitor Center and Restoration Project, a multi-phase, multi-benefit project to restore ecosystem function and key salmon habitat on Lower Prairie Creek and develop the site for economic opportunity and tribal benefits. The site, owned by the nonprofit organization Save the Redwoods League, was formerly the location of a sawmill and dairy operation. Along with remnants of the mill development, the site currently contains the most downstream mile of Prairie Creek and its floodplain, wetlands, and forest habitats. The project includes removing 4 acres of asphalt from the 20-acre former mill site, excavating and restoring fish habitat, extending stream meander, restoring floodplain along 1,000 feet of incised channel, and planting with native vegetation. It will use fill from excavation to bring to grade the excavated asphalt in preparation of a trails gateway, and will provide soils to establish a footprint of the approximately 2.6-acre future Yurok village site, where Yurok tribal members will regain access to ancestral land. Next slide, please. Prairie Creek is the largest tributary to Redwood Creek, and while much of Prairie Creek is a water quality and salmon stronghold, Certain sections of the creek, including the project site, have legacy land use issues that require restoration and enhancement to improve water quality and habitat. Prairie Creek flows into Redwood Creek 3 river miles from the Pacific Ocean, where it discharges into a designated water quality protection area and a critical coastal area. This implementation project addresses degraded water quality, fish habitat loss, and limited economic opportunities in the community. A primary goal of the project is to restore geomorphic and biological functions in the lower Prairie Creek subwatershed for the benefit of Endangered Species Act listed fish, other wildlife, and local communities, including tribes. A new trail system will improve access for the local community and visitors, including the Yurok and Yurok tribal communities, and will include interpretation via exhibits, tours, signage, etc., for coastal ecology and tribal culture. The Yurok tribe has been a key planning member The Yurok tribe has been a key planning member, and their implementation crew will be a primary restoration contractor, as will members of the Yurok community. Next slide, please. The Wiyot tribe acquisition of coastal properties for the Cultural and Water Quality Protection Project is located in Ouija, also known as Humboldt Bay, in an area called Morashawak. The project consists of acquiring a 48-acre coastal property for ecocultural restoration, water quality protection, and conservation purposes. The project team is composed of representatives from the Wiyot tribe, Humboldt State University, and 2 environmental non-governmental organizations, the Friends of the Dunes and Humboldt Baykeeper. The project was developed at the request of the Wiyot tribe, and the other project partners are involved to help support the tribe's goals for land return and ecocultural restoration. Morashawak, or Lower Humboldt Hill, is a culturally important site within the Wiyot ancestral territory that is just 9 miles from the Wiyot tribe's Table Bluff Reservation. This project includes site assessment, land acquisition, community engagement, and the development of a monitoring and ecocultural restoration and management plan that draws from traditional ecological knowledge and Western science to support water quality, coastal habitat, and cultural sustainability on the site and in the connected region. Next slide, please. The site proposed for acquisition and future restoration has been identified as a critical coastal area and is upstream of a Clean Water Act Section 303D listed impaired waterway for dioxins and PCBs. It is also located within the Elk River watershed, which is a 303D listed as impaired by sediment. The site contains degraded coastal wetlands and upland areas with spruce forests, open meadows, many invasive species, and has been logged as recently as 2014. As I mentioned, the project includes the development of an ecocultural restoration and management plan for restoring the site for water quality, coastal habitat, sea level rise adaptation, and cultural purposes. Best management practices such as bioswales to retain and infiltrate stormwater before it reaches the streams and wetlands will be implemented to address sediment pollution from the timber harvest activities and actively restore hydrologic connectivity between the 2 wetlands that were fragmented by road development, allowing for an expansion of the wetlands. The project will also incorporate a substantial educational component consisting of at least 1 Wiyot intern, 3 graduate students, and 4 undergraduates from HSU who will assist with cleanup, ecocultural planning, and monitoring of the site. HSU's Native American Studies Department recently launched a food sovereignty lab. This lab space and the collective expertise of faculty involved will help contribute to ecocultural restoration planning processes as well. The Wiyot tribe currently owns less than 1% of land in their ancestral territory. Acquisition would allow the tribe to increase its land holdings by 12%, fulfilling a key goal of the tribe to regain ownership of ancestral lands. Land return can be a deeply empowering spiritual and cultural process for Indigenous nations and is a means to address historic injustice and to heal and restore these landscapes and ecosystems. Benefits from the project are likely to accrue for generations, as the site will be a location for tribal members to visit and gather culturally important species long into the future. Next slide, please. The Tusconia Marsh Restoration and Sea Level Rise Adaptation Project is located in the city of San Rafael at the mouth of the San Rafael Canal in Marin County on a portion of the Pickleweed Park and the adjacent Tusconia Marsh in the canal community. The majority of the project area is owned by the Marin Audubon Society, who is a project lead and an organization that serves the entire county of Marin. Approximately 6 acres of the project site are owned by the city. This project will restore Tusconia Marsh's tidal marsh and mudflats. Major project elements include the development of a coarse beach, reconstruction of the eroded tidal marsh, restoring the diked marsh to the bay, shoreline levee improvements, and development of an ecotone slope. The project will also coordinate and synergize with the city's closely related trash capture project, also located at Pickleweed Park. The Tusconia Marsh has experienced considerable erosion along its bayward edge, which is attributed to direct wave action from the San Rafael Bay, a segment of central San Francisco Bay. Over the last 30 years, approximately 3 acres of the tidal marsh has been lost to this erosion, which has dramatically impacted habitat for species. Under current conditions, it is expected that this erosion will continue and will likely increase as sea level rises. The second critical issue for this general area is flooding. The adjacent canal neighborhood is low-lying and is currently at risk to coastal flooding, the project, as well as sea level rise. The project is needed to halt the rapid loss of tidal marsh from ongoing erosion and to help reduce the coastal flood risk for San Rafael's canal community by restoring tidal marsh and improving a portion of the levee. Next slide, please. Restoring and improving resilience of tidal marsh habitats and improving the existing levee with a functional ecotone will protect both the ecosystem and the adjacent community, particularly in light of climate change. When complete, this project will significantly improve flood protection for the improved levee segment by raising elevations to the 100-year event plus 3 feet with additional adaptive capacity for future levee raising to meet state goals for sea level rise adaptation by mid-century. Funds requested through this grant will be used for final design and permitting to ready the Tusconia Marsh project for future construction. The community at most risk and the primary beneficiary of the project is the adjacent canal community due to experiencing flooding with overtopping or breaching of the levee. The canal supports the largest disadvantaged community in Marin County, as well as businesses and other services. The Marin Audubon Society, with leadership support from their canal community partner, the Multicultural Center of Marin, will continue to engage the community through expanded outreach, workshops, and community events. With leadership from the Multicultural Center of Marin, a resilience team will be established with the purpose to empower community members to take the lead on climate actions. The team will consist of community members trained by the Multicultural Center of Marin on how to educate, engage, and empower residents to participate in projects, planning, and other decision processes that affect their well-being. Engagement activities, particularly of the resilience team, are designed to introduce members of the community to environmental issues, including climate-related risks, and offer guidance on developing community-informed solutions. Next slide, please. The Middle Shrew Slough Water Quality and Habitat Improvement Project is located in the city of Watsonville in southern Santa Cruz County in the Pajaro River watershed. This project is a multi-benefit ecosystem and watershed restoration project that improves water quality, native habitat, and regional resilience to climate change. The proposed project will implement watershed restoration and habitat protection measures that will address habitat loss and environmental degradation within the Watsonville Slough system through the enhancement of 1,800-foot linear wetland and riparian corridor and restoration and enhancement of approximately 5 acres of wetlands, grassland, woodland, and riparian habitat. The project is located within a branch of the Watsonville Slough system, an approximately 800-acre wetland complex, which includes one of the state's largest remaining contiguous freshwater coastal wetlands. The Slough system underlies the city of Watsonville and drains to the Pajaro River mouth at its confluence with the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. The area in which the project will occur has been greatly modified over the past 150 years, leading to reduced wetland and watershed function and the ecosystem services they provide, loss of native habitat, and significant water quality impairment. Next slide, please. Shrew Slough, where the proposed work will occur, is a 303D listed as impaired by pH, dissolved oxygen, chlorophyll A, toxicity, turbidity, E. coli bacteria, and fecal coliform bacteria. The project design concept focuses on measures that will reduce sediment in stormwater and lead to significant reductions in E. coli concentrations through construction of 2 sediment capture and treatment basins at Culver Outfalls, which currently deliver untreated urban runoff to the downstream wetlands. The project will improve water quality in on-site wetlands as well as downstream wetlands and the Pajaro River and Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary into which these wetlands drain. Proposed activity will also provide many additional co-benefits, such as flood attenuation, increased resiliency to climate change, improve access to nature, parks, and trails for Watsonville residents, and provide extensive environmental education, nature experiences, and green jobs training for Watsonville residents. Habitat restoration work will be managed by the nonprofit organization Watsonville Wetlands Watch. The Watsonville Wetlands Watch will also oversee the project community engagement plan with the support of the city's community outreach team and a suite of close project partners that include Regeneración Pajaro Valley Climate Action, Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County's Watsonville Works Program, the Amamutsan Land Trust, and the Pajaro Valley Ohlone Indian Council. The project will provide paid job training opportunities and educational field trips for Watsonville youth, along with a large number of community engagement planting and restoration volunteer days for Watsonville families. Watsonville area youth will receive paid stipends to work on this project through their participation in Watsonville Wetlands Watch's high school job training program, the Climate Corps Leadership Institute. Additional workforce benefits include participation by young adults in the California Conservation Corps and paid collaborations with project partners. Next slide, please. The Wilmington Middle School and Community Green Infrastructure Project is a Wilmington community-driven, nature-based project using an evidence-driven model to bring low-income community green infrastructure stormwater management solutions that address the water crisis and local environmental injustices. This multi-benefit project proposes green infrastructure stormwater management solutions with low-impact development and stormwater mitigation practices, including replacing asphalt and concrete with native plants and trees and installing bioswales and rain gardens at Wilmington Middle School to reduce runoff volumes and pollutants entering the Dominguez Channel and Los Angeles Harbor. Wilmington is a neighborhood in the city of Los Angeles, a strong example of a frontline low-income coastal community of color suffering from a legacy of environmental injustices. Approximately 70,000 working-class Latinos live in this harbor community surrounded by the highest concentration of oil refineries in California, the third largest oil field in the country, the busiest port in the United States, the Port of LA, freeways congested with heavy-duty vehicles, polluted urban dry and wet water runoff, heavily impacted soils, and some of the highest concentrations of pollution sources in the entire state. As demonstrated by surrounding land uses, the area has extremely low amounts of permeable surfaces and high exposure to potential water pollution. The Dominguez Channel runs through Wilmington and leads to the Los Angeles main harbor. Both waters are impaired as defined by the Clean Water Act, with known water pollutants in the area, including lead, zinc, copper, DDT, and PCBs. These environmental issues are exacerbated due to very little park space, natural landscapes, beach access, and lack of open space throughout Wilmington. The project addresses a critical need to implement watershed adaptation projects in order to reduce the impact of climate change on California's coastal communities and ecosystems, and to provide a healthier, greener, and more climate resilient learning environment at Wilmington Middle School. Next slide, please. The project team includes Tree People, a community-based organization with over 47 years of experience in urban greening, community engagement, and creating authentic partnerships in the communities it serves. Tree People will partner with the Los Angeles Unified School District, Wilmington Middle School, and a local community-based organization, Communities for a Better Environment, to implement this nature-based, multi-benefit green infrastructure stormwater management project on a campus that is largely covered by impermeable asphalt. Tree People and LAUSD have a formalized memorandum of understanding and allowing the two entities to work collaboratively on efforts such as this one. The MOU and project will serve as a strong model for school greening projects in years to come. As I mentioned, the project includes removing over 14,400 square feet of asphalt at 2 sites on the school's campus and replacing it with permeable surfaces to create outdoor multifunctional spaces. Reducing pollutant runoff to improve water quality is at the center of this project, while the project also provides other co-benefits to the community, such as increased urban green space, air quality improvement, and extreme heat mitigation. The project will fund planning, 100% completion of design, engineering, and permitting, construction and monitoring, and continued community engagement. Community volunteer events to perform tree and shrub planting across the school will take place during the implementation phase. The project also includes workforce pathways and green jobs for students through the Generation Earth program, a county public works funded program that annually equips over 14,000 middle and high school students in Los Angeles with environmental skills and knowledge to address environmental issues they are facing in their communities. This project will leverage its environmental education programming to encourage long-term use and care of the green infrastructure improvements on campus. Through this model, Tree People have seen greater returns on community members engaged and actively participating to provide community-informed solutions for projects. Next slide, please. The Paradise Creek Wetland Extension and Park Creation Project is located in National City, San Diego, and is immediately adjacent to Paradise Creek, an estuarine tidally influenced wetland comprised of water from the San Diego Bay. Paradise Creek drains approximately 1 mile downstream to the Sweetwater Marsh Unit, which is part of the San Diego Bay National Wildlife Refuge. The project consists of demolition of a portion of the existing industrial land use, an old welding shop, wetland expansion, creation of a park, an educational picnic area, installation of 5 trash control devices, interpretive signage, and sidewalk improvements. Paradise Creek is on the Clean Water Act Section 303D list of impaired waterways for phosphorus. The city has also received feedback from local groups and residents that trash is frequently observed in the creek. 5 trash control full capture devices that capture trash larger than 5 millimeters in diameter will be installed upstream of the project area to prevent trash from discharging into the site. Additionally, National City is known to have air quality issues and has one of the highest asthma rates in San Diego County. As a critically underserved community, National City is greatly in need of additional green spaces. The students at Kimball Elementary School and residents of Paradise Creek Apartments just south of the project area will be the largest beneficiaries of the green space. Next slide, please. The wetland extension allows for connectivity to the salt marsh habitat to improve native wildlife biodiversity, as well as minimize the localized flooding on nearby roads from tidal influences in the creek. Furthermore, the project will have a local and regional watershed impact of creating native wetland habitat for local wildlife in an environmentally sensitive area within the city and helps restore Paradise Creek to a more natural hydraulic system. As part of the project's community engagement plan, the project will play a significant role in increasing environmental awareness and education for students at nearby Kimball Elementary. The city is dedicated to working with nonprofits and civic groups, such as the Paradise Creek Educational Park Incorporated, A Reason to Survive Arts, Ocean Connectors, the National School District, and the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative to give feedback and look for ways to collaborate during the conceptual design stages and into further stages of the project by hosting community workshops at the nearby elementary school. Community members will also be involved in the creation of the art installation within the newly created educational picnic area. There will also be opportunities for classes to be conducted outdoors once the educational picnic area is implemented. Bilingual interpretive signage will be installed at the project site, which will also provide historical context of the project area, restoration and wetland improvements, and visions for the larger park system. Next slide, please. Okay, so in summary, if approved, these 6 projects will total $7.5 million. If these recommended projects are approved by the council today, OPC staff will then work to execute grant agreements and oversee grants. Staff is requesting that the council approve all 6 projects for Prop 1 award funding through this Coastal Environmental Justice Grant Program. Next slide, please. And with that said, that concludes my presentation. Thank you all for listening. I'm happy to take questions now.
Thanks so much, Maria, and thanks for all the work that went into that in that thorough presentation. I am really quite impressed and want to commend the OPC for utilizing that Prop 1 funding, obviously focused on water improvement and prioritizing vulnerable communities. We talk a lot about building climate resilience and resilience to these challenges we have in the state, and the fact that vulnerable communities are a greater threat to some of these risks. And this is really a program and a set of proposals that really walks the walk on that by investing in communities and community-driven projects. So I'm really energized by these proposals. Let me turn it to Secretary Blumenfeld.
Just want to echo your words, Secretary Crowfoot. I mean, Maria, you guys did an awesome job. I know how hard and how many incredibly worthy projects are out there that applied. So I just want to thank all those folks that applied but didn't get funded. I know that's really hard and put a lot of time and energy into them. I think the good news, to Wade's point, is that as a state, and certainly kudos to Wade and resources, and certainly and in our agency, we're trying to really focus as much funding as possible on communities that need the help the most. And so those proposals that were put together that weren't funded, hopefully we get to see them happen in other contexts through other funding sources. But the ones that you did pick, really outstanding. I had just a quick question, Maria, about I spent quite a lot of time up there with them, and is the goal, we don't need to get into any details, but will our funding help put the land in trust, or it just basically gets the land into fee and then they need to put it into trust? I know that's kind of a technical issue, but
it will be conveyed to the tribes.
Okay, and then they have to work with BIA to turn it into trust land. Perfect. Well, congratulations again, the whole suite of them, I think, geographically, and really appreciate, to the point about the Yurok, and we are really, really great to include tribes in that environmental justice lens. And thank you for all the work, and I'll certainly be voting to forward them. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I had shared at the beginning of the meeting that Mark Gold, who serves as our executive director of the OPC, is in jury duty, and he is taking a break in jury duty to pipe in. So Mark, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Secretary Crowfoot. I just wanted to commend Maria and the team, as everyone else is doing. But I think one other important point is that I think this demonstrates that we as a state could really be doing more in environmental justice with our existing bond programs. And I know they're not all completely spent out and so we were very, very fortunate in working with our legal staff at CNRA to be able to really make this work. And I think the results are extraordinary. So I just hope it serves as a model for the rest of the state on what we can do to really overcome some of these barriers and overcome some of these injustices.
Yeah, well put. I think this can be a really powerful model. So let's follow up on that and see how we can apply it more broadly to existing and future bond funds. We want to hear from members of the public. So I think we're gonna move to public comment. And again, if you are joining on the Zoom platform, you can raise your virtual hand, which is a button at the bottom of the screen. And if you're calling in by telephone, you press #2, and then you may have to unmute yourself. I'd ask everybody that wants to provide public comment to go ahead and let us know now, and then we'll set that queue and ask our colleague James to call on the first hand that's up.
Thank you, Chair Crowfoot. We have 19 attendees who wish to comment. We will be starting with Bob Pagliuco, followed by Donna Hufford, and then Helenia Wilkinson. Bob, you have the floor.
Thanks, Holly.
Looks like you're unmuted and ready to go, Bob. All right, we will go ahead and move on to Donna then. And Bob, if you want to raise your hand.
I apologize. Sorry, I thought I unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sure can.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Maria, for that presentation, and thank you, council members. That was a great suite of projects. I'm Bob Pagliuco. I work with the NOAA Restoration Center. I'm a marine habitat restoration specialist, and I wanted to comment on the first project, the Lower Prairie Creek project. I've been involved in that project since 2014 on both the project development team and the implementation and the permitting team. In addition, I was a funder of that project, the NOAA Restoration Center, to the tune of $600,000. And in 2017 and 18, this project is a priority for NOAA because of our 3 listed species that'll benefit. We've got coho, chinook, and steelhead in here, and Prairie Creek and Redwood Creek is a core watershed identified in our NOAA recovery plans. This project has significant benefits. It's going to restore over almost a mile of creek. 18 acres of floodplain, and nearly 28 acres of riparian habitat, and improve water quality as well. In addition to the benefit to the NOAA TRIS resources, this project will also benefit disadvantaged communities. The town of Oric has a median household income, annual income of $35,000, and then the Yurok tribe has a median household income of only $28,000. And the tribe will be working here on this project, and it'll benefit them significantly. This project has an opportunity to provide environmental justice for the tribe as well. In the early implementation project that just wrapped up a couple of months ago, one of the tribal members working on the construction crew had found out just a few weeks prior that his family came from the village site right on this property. So it's a really important project, and thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Bob.
Next commenter is going to be Donna Hupford, followed by Helenia Wilkinson and Sue Corbally. Donna, you have the floor. Donna, it looks like you're still muted. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to Helenia then. Helenia, you now have the floor.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Sure can.
Yes. Hi, so my name is Helena. I'm a Yurok tribal member, and this project is so important for us. This would provide the tribe with land in our ancestral territory, and it was also a historical Yurok village site. And many tribals would be able to go there, tribal members go there and gather and recreate, or just be able to go there and be in nature. Because it has many culturally significant species, such as spruce root, berries, and hazel, and so many more. And this would give our tribe an opportunity to practice traditional land stewardship and potentially have classes to teach youth traditional ecological knowledge. This area is also really easily accessible, which would be great. So we would be able to bring elders out there to be able to gather and teach that otherwise they could not hike out into the woods anymore and gather. And it's also in a really great location, so close to the coast, and easily launch boats. So there's a boat launch, we can go out and crab, and just, it'd be really important to have some more land in our territory because we have so little and not many areas we can go and gather and practice and hold a ceremony. And lots of the areas we go to gather and hunt are now private or just so hard to get to or burnt because of the wildfires. So I just think this is a really important project, and thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Helena.
Next speaker is going to be Sue Corbally, followed by Jonathan Pilch. Sue, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Crowfoot and members of the Ocean Protection Council. And thank you, Maria, for an excellent summary of the project. My name is Sue Corbally. I'm a project manager with the State Coastal Conservancy, and I have managed the Conservancy's efforts for the project since its inception in 2014. Before I make my own remarks, I'd like to say a few words on behalf of Humboldt County Supervisor Steve Madrone, who represents the 5th District where the project is located. He's unable to attend today. We spoke and he asked that I say a few words. He wanted to ask me to thank the OPC for its support of this project and to let you know he strongly supports our efforts to restore and enhance the critical salmon habitat, improve water quality, and provide significant benefits to the severely disadvantaged communities. For your reference, Supervisor Madrone also provided a letter in our application, the Prop 1 application. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the State Coastal Conservancy staff for your consideration. For the last 7 years, we've collaborated with the landowner, the community of Oric, local consultants, National Park Service, the Yurok tribe, and regional resource agencies, and we have provided both planning and implementation funds. We've provided nearly $800K in planning and $1.3 million for implementation. Our goal has always been to provide the multiple benefits mentioned by Maria by developing a comprehensive project that integrates restoration and public access while addressing the needs and goals of the local communities of Oric and the Yurok tribe and ensure there is an active role for both at the site. We completed the first of several construction seasons just a couple of weeks ago, employing the Yurok tribe for that work. The OPC Prop 1 funding will allow us to continue construction uninterrupted into the 2022 season to launch the largest and most complex phase. By doing so, we should be able to achieve our goal to complete restoration by the end of 2025. We are bolstered by the enthusiastic community and partner support our project is receiving for the restoration work and the opportunity. Thank you.
Sue, thank you for all your work at the Conservancy and on this project.
Our next speaker is Jonathan Pilch, followed by Rosie Claiborne. Jonathan, you have the floor.
Hello, thank you so much for your time today. My name is Jonathan Pilch. I'm the Executive Director of Watsonville Wetlands Watch. That is a nonprofit organization that's worked since 1991 to protect, restore, and foster appreciation of the wetlands of the Pajaro Valley. Since 2018, we've been collaborating with the City of Watsonville under a Department of Water Resources Disadvantaged Communities Planning Grant to develop the Middle Struve Slough Water Quality and Habitat Improvement Project. It's a project that will serve as a high-quality demonstration project for urban runoff, stormwater treatment, restoration of degraded habitats in an impaired water body, the Watsonville Slough System, and a disadvantaged community, the Watsonville community. It's a project that has centered equity throughout its project design and plan for implementation. It will do so by being located along a really important, highly used public trail, enhancing coastal access through new trails construction, career and pathway training opportunities for over 60 high school age youth who are enrolled in the Watsonville Climate Corps Leadership Institute, and in myriad other ways. Through our participation of our organization, we are committed to a strong partnership with the City of Watsonville. Grateful to the Ocean Protection Council for your consideration, and we're confident that this project, both through as a result of its implementation and through the implementation strategies that will engage thousands of local youth and community members in creative ways, will have really strong and important, meaningful benefits for the Watsonville community, Watsonville Wetlands, and Monterey Bay. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thanks, Jonathan, for your leadership.
Our next speaker is going to be Rosie Claiborne, followed by Leslie Wolf. Rosie, you have the floor.
Ayakwi Neknau Rosie Claiborne. I'm the Tribal Heritage Preservation Officer for the Yurok tribe. I'm here today to speak to you guys about the project with Save the Redwoods League. The Yurok tribe is in full support of the project that is going on there and the restoration work. Our team has been super involved from the concept of this project all the way through the implementation. It's a way to restore some lost habitat from a site that has been heavily used as an industrial site. And we really look forward to our continued partnership with Save the Redwoods League in Redwood National and State Park, not only for the restoration of this site and important fish habitat, but also for bringing Yurok people back onto the landscape there. We have talks about building a Yurok village there and having Yurok people be intricately involved with the interpretation of the site. We've also sat on several committees with the visitor center. So we're heavily involved, and we really look forward to continuing that project. Walk Cloud.
Thank you so much, Rosie.
The next speaker is Leslie Wolf, followed by Adam Cantor. Leslie, you have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Leslie Wolf. I'm with NOAA Fisheries. I've been with NOAA for 30 or almost 25 years now, working in conservation and resource protection for 30 years on the North Coast. The project up at Prairie Creek, the importance of it for the recovery of salmon and steelhead really can't be overstated. Bob explained that a little bit, but it's really one of our most important climate and salmon refuges in the state. And our recovery plans emphasize securing these strongholds moving forward. And Lower Prairie Creek is so ready for this restoration and to regain its health as a hugely important salmon producer. The intersection that this project provides between salmon, water quality, the Yurok tribe, and the severely disadvantaged community of Oric is so important. I've been involved since the beginning of the project, as you've heard my colleagues state, and it's one of the best projects that's come forward in all my years of working in resource protection up on the North Coast. So appreciate your attention to the environmental justice issue and your ability to weave together a grant program to benefit ecosystems, water quality, and environmental justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all your work, Leslie.
Next speaker is going to be Adam Cancer, followed by Mary Burke. Adam, you have the floor.
Awatlo, greetings. Adam Cantor, WIOT Natural Resources Department, and just want to thank the council and Maria especially for that excellent presentation and congratulations to all the amazing projects. I'm speaking on behalf of the WIOT acquisition of a coastal property for cultural and water quality protection. I don't think I have to say that this is going to be monumental for the WIOT, who presently don't even have access to any coastal forest habitat and currently hold less than 1% of their ancestral territory. This is a rare coastal gem, 45 acres of Sitka spruce and meadow and wetland habitat right on the Wiggy, right on Humboldt Bay. And as you know, the WIOT, as the stewards of these lands and waters since time immemorial, are the best caretakers to pass this on to and help protect it from future development and also guide its path forward under sea level rise. We're really thankful for our partners with HSU, Friends of the Dunes, Humboldt Baykeeper, and we're really ready to hit the ground running. We were able to secure a match to secure a qualified appraiser, and the tribe provided a match for the purchase agreement. And we're ready to get going and hopeful and optimistic about the ecocultural restoration of this significant place, cultural site of Marashawak. Thank you for consideration and take care.
Thanks, Adam. Second time we're on a Zoom together in 2 weeks. Appreciate your work on all this.
Next speaker is going to be Mary Burke, followed by Jessica Carter. Mary, you have the floor.
Hello, and thank you. I'm Mary Burke. I work with California Trout on the North Coast. I'm really honored to join so many of my North Coast colleagues for the Prairie Creek project, as well as the project there to acquire land down in Humboldt Bay. Thank you to your staff, Maria, and to OPC Council for favorable consideration of this project. I'll be really short here and say, going to Liz Whiteman's comments earlier, this project is really putting science into action through a collaborative community-based team. And so keeping it short, I want to ask if you would put Donna Hufford back onto your list, as she had trouble joining earlier, but I believe she is still on the call. And Donna Hufford is a very integrated community member up there in Oric, and I think it would be wonderful to be able to hear what she has to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. And we'll make sure Donna's back in the queue here, Holly.
She is in the queue, so
great.
We should be able to get her on soon. Next speaker is going to be Jessica Carter, followed by Yesenia Jimenez. Jessica, you have the floor.
Great. Good afternoon. I'm with Save the Redwoods League, the landowner of the Oric Mill site, and I'm the league's manager for the Redwood National and State Parks Visitor Center and Lower Prairie Creek Restoration Project. So I'm joining the chorus to express our deep gratitude for the Ocean Protection Council's consideration of support. Throughout the planning and design process, this project has been greatly strengthened by a robust group of partners, many of whom you've heard from today. And we're really excited and ready to advance restoration implementation in the year ahead. As we do that, we remain wholly committed to continuing to engage communities that have been historically excluded or marginalized. This engagement specifically includes the Yurok tribe, which is a core partner in all aspects of the project in their ancestral lands, Oric residents, and Latinx communities in Humboldt County. So we intend to continue centering these communities as we implement public access improvements on site and introduce recreational programming after the project is completed. I know I speak for the League and our whole project team when I say that OPC's prioritization of environmental justice in restoration projects is hugely appreciated. And thank you so much again.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
Next speaker is going to be Yesenia, followed by Jorge Olmos. Yesenia, you have the floor.
Hello. I work for Watsonville Wetlands Watch, and I'm on the education and restoration side on the staff. So I get to work leading the restoration volunteer days, and I get to work with the student interns. I want to say thank you for considering funding our project, because that's one of the most heavily used trails that we have, like in the middle of the city. We've been working really hard to change like the in Spanish, there's two words for wetlands. So there's pantano and humedales, and each one of them has a more negative connotation. And just by getting people to do more volunteer days and learn more about like what goes in into water quality and how wetlands can help it, we can change like the perspective on the slough and make it more positive. And then our interns get to learn about what goes into restoring a site. So instead of just restoration with us, like planting plants, they get to see like, oh, there's people who work on implementing a plan on how to do this, or there's people who come and look at the topography. I also think it's really great to get more people out there and work on different sections of the trail, so they could get to learn the native plants and get an appreciation for them. And then by getting appreciation for a small piece of nature in our city, then maybe for the earth as a whole. Yeah, because there's a lot of people who don't know that we have the third largest freshwater wetland remaining in California. So once you start to share facts like that with them, it's really amazing to see their perspective kind of like expand on how important these pieces of land are. But yeah, I just want to say thank you, and our interns benefit a lot from being exposed to different career paths.
Thank you, Yesenia, for all that you're doing down there.
Next speaker is Jorge, followed by Ariel Whitson. Jorge, you have the floor.
On behalf of Wilmington Middle School and the Wilmington area, we thank you, Ocean Protection Council delegates, for shedding light on the inequities of our area. Having the most polluted area in California, third in the country, is uncalled for. We have refineries, as was mentioned. We have trucks from the Port of Los Angeles, one of the largest ports in the world, contributing to the pollution of our area. We've had surrounding areas that have left oil deposits where they build homes. So our community suffers cancer, diseases, all kinds of atrocities. 20% of our students suffer from respiratory issues. We have a water sanitation plant right next door. We have the Dominguez Channel, which you might have heard of, the horrendous smells and toxic smells that are just plaguing our environment. It's much needed. Everything that you're going to bring to us, California being the 5th largest economy in the world, we absolutely need the good that you're going to do. Thank you for bringing equity and justice to us in a community that is hardworking, has low-income students. All our students qualify for free and reduced lunch, and to bring a little bit of green to an urban jungle with the very limited trees and green space that we have for our kids. We look forward to capturing a lot of the runoff water so it doesn't contribute to the Pacific Gyre, and it helps clean up our neck of the woods because it's choking our citizens. My daughter suffers from asthma and allergies. She's 4th generation, and at 3 years old, she suffered an attack where she was turning blue. As a result, but how many other of our family members lived through those nightmares? I had a high school friend that died of cancer. I had a high school friend just recently die a year ago. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jorge, for giving voice to the need. Very powerful.
Our next speaker is Ariel, followed by Jose Lopez. Ariel, you have the floor.
Thank you, honorable members of the Ocean Protection Council, for this opportunity, and deep appreciation to the OPC staff that have been supportive throughout this entire process. I'm Ariel Ilo Whitson, Director of Education and Community at Tree People, to advocate for the Wilmington Middle School project. I'd like to start with a statement from Cynthia, who could not be here because she's in class. Hello, my name is Cynthia, and I am in the 6th grade. I'm here to persuade you to help us clean up a bit here. I'm kind of scared by this pollution. I believe that if we don't deal with it now, that it will come back to haunt us later. Now, I can't deal with this all alone, so why can't we start small? Our rain gardens will help prevent more pollution. I am mostly scared of the pollution because I have a little sister. She's 8, and I don't want her and I to live on a brown planet. No, not Mars either. I want us to live on a lush, blue, and green planet, and that can't happen without a bit of action. Thank you. This project will be led by Cynthia, Principal Olmos, who you just heard from, and all the incredible youth and educators that are a part of the Wilmington Middle School community who advocated for this with Tree People and LAUSD, as demonstrated by the over 150 students, parents, and teachers that joined our grant interview and the over 50 support letters submitted. Wilmington, a neighborhood in LA, is the epitome of a frontline low-income coastal community of color suffering from a legacy of environmental injustices. Despite these injustices, residents have become more resilient and ready to change the course of history and improve their chance of survival and improve public health. This will be a model project between the state, the community, the school district, a local nonprofit, and a community-based organization. And we're not only thinking about this for Wilmington, and it can't be understated how important this is for the Wilmington community, but it's part of an integrated large-scale strategy to green all of LAUSD school campuses. So thank you all today, and we hope that this project gets approved.
Thanks so much, Ariel.
Next speaker is Jose, followed by Jacqueline McLeod. Jose, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Crowfoot, council members, and members of the public. On behalf of the City of National City, I want to thank you for your consideration. My name is Jose Lopez, Deputy City Engineer for the City of National City. I'm here today to speak in support of the Paradise Creek Wetland Expansion and Park Site Project. National City is a severely disadvantaged community of approximately 60,000 residents with a median household income in the vicinity of the project of $27,500 within the County of San Diego. And we have one of the highest rates of asthma in San Diego County, which we'll believe that the Paradise Creek Wetland Expansion Parkside Project will enhance our green spaces for our community. This project will convert previously industrial land into an expanded wetland community park that will connect the riparian habitat of Paradise Creek in a community that is, as I mentioned, in great need of this additional green space. The City of National City is confident that in partnership with our local partners, A Reason to Survive at the National School District, Ocean Connectors, Paradise Creek Educational Park, Inc., California Conservation Corps, and the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative, and our expert consultant team, will deliver a successful project for our community that is in alignment with OPC's program goals and will benefit them substantially. Thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Thank you so much, Jose.
Next speaker is Jacqueline, followed by Cindy Montanez. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline McLeod. I'm the Environmental Sustainability Manager with the City of Watsonville. I feel very fortunate to stand before you and be considered for the Middle Struve Slough project located in the city of Watsonville. As Yesenia and Jonathan both mentioned, this is a project that is in the heart of our community. It is a well-used and trafficked area by many of our students that use it to go to and from school, as well as it provides a free recreational opportunity. It's been my pleasure to work on the city's local hazard mitigation plan and climate action and adaptation plan. Inclusive in those two plans with the city, we've worked to incorporate our environmental justice element. Through our Community Advisory Committee, we recognize that providing these opportunities to the community where they provide volunteer days to help restore the natural environment brings that sense of community closer, as well as a connection with natural waterways. Communities like ours are grateful to be considered in these larger funding projects, as well as we want to provide those continued opportunities for our community. We feel fortunate to partner with Watsonville Wetlands Watch. They have been a wonderful stakeholder and will provide critical climate leadership in this project. I'm also our city stormwater program manager. So any ways that we can improve our water bodies as they flow into the National Marine Sanctuary located in the Monterey Bay are a high priority for my program. Again, thank you for your consideration for our project, and thank you so much to Maria for her hard efforts on the project as well.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Our next speaker is Cindy, followed by Richard Sadowski. Cindy, you have the floor.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So this is Cindy Montañez, CEO of Tree People, and I just want to be here to just give our strongest support to Principal Jorge Olmos and the Wilmington Middle School community. Thank you for considering this investment into greening middle school, Wilmington Middle School. As you know, Wilmington is one of the most polluted communities in the entire state of California. It's in the harbor community. It's surrounded by the highest concentration of oil refineries in the entire state, but it is absolutely one of the most hopeful, most energetic communities we have ever worked with. It was incredible to see over 150 youth and community members participate in the interview that we had with OPC. So thank you, Maria and Mark, Lindsay, for that interview. You truly inspired a lot of young kids and community members to want to do more to green Wilmington. So we as Tree People, CBE, LAUSD, lots of the local elected officials are completely behind Wilmington to make sure that we give them all the support, resources necessary to green their school, improve water quality, address water contamination issues, and truly make Wilmington one of the few low-income communities of color that are ready to address these ever increasing impacts from climate change, especially issues of sea level rise. They have very low adaptive capacity, but we're going to do this together, and we want to do this with OPC. We want to be able to set up a model so that we can green schools across our coastal communities, especially schools that are in very low income communities of color that have been exposed to a lot of environmental injustices for many years. So I just wanted to get on to say thank you very much, and let's really make this a model and green more schools throughout the state of California.
Thanks, Cindy, for joining to share that support.
Our next speaker is Richard, followed by Mike Bannon. Richard, you have the floor.
Hi, Richard Sadowski, Homefront Environmental Justice, Morro Bay. And I just want to first thank Maria for an awesome presentation. And I hope that the OPC supports all these great projects. And I do have a little soft spot for Wilmington. I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised. And I'm so encouraged that the OPC is reaching out there and helping provide, working with the young people and, giving them hope and making their lives matter by what they're doing. And I just want to thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard.
Our next speaker is Mike, followed by Marco Berger. Mike, you have the floor.
Hi, Mike Beenan, Laguna Bluebell Coalition. We're very proud in Laguna Beach to have a citywide marine protected area, and the Bluebell Coalition has been looking at water quality impacts. To that end, there's an Aliso Creek urban runoff partnership with all the inland cities in the watershed that's resulted in a 47% reduction to the Aliso marine protected area offshore. Protecting the beach sand berm is key. And so we initiated a Burn Buddy education and monitoring program this summer, which was co-funded by the city of Laguna Beach, the Bluebelt Coalition, and Orange County Coastkeeper. The Aliso Estuary restoration is an attempt to bring the lagoon back to Laguna. The planning has been funded by the California Coastal Conservancy for recovery of tidewater goby and southern steelhead trout. Aliso Beach, incidentally, is a destination for all communities, particularly regional disadvantaged communities, due to its easy access. I would like to invite you to visit lagunabluebelt.org. And there are 10 years of images that we've collected through our photo contest that are free for use to inspire people in your area to protect and celebrate our California's wonderful ocean water resources. Thanks for the opportunity to share this with you.
Thank you, Mike.
Our next speaker is Marco, followed by Mike Stipra. Marco, you have the floor. Marco, looks like you're still on mute.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Marco Berger, and I am the Community Resilience Coordinator for the Multicultural Center of Marin. I wanted to thank Maria for her great presentation, and I wanted to thank the OPC Council for your positive consideration of the Tusconia Marsh project. The community, the Multicultural Center of Marin, I work closely with the canal community to bring equity and environmental justice to our community. I've been coordinating community engagement efforts on the Tusconia Marsh project. The mission of the Multicultural Center of Marin is to provide culturally appropriate resources and opportunities to empower and inspire diverse communities to build an inclusive and equitable county that they want to live in. The canal community is a densely populated neighborhood comprised of close to 13,000 residents, mostly underserved low-income immigrants. As Maria mentioned, this is the largest disadvantaged community in Marin County and consists of businesses and services. Improving flood protection would allow residents of the canal and businesses to continue to live and work in the community. The canal faces a threat due to floods expected as sea level rises progresses. Water levels in San Francisco Bay can rise 8 inches by 2035 and 16 by 2050. Neighborhoods that face the canal are among the most vulnerable. The local elementary school and the community center, both critical assets for the canal, could face up to 2 feet of flooding in the future. MCM is partnered with Marin Audubon Society on the Tusconia Marsh project to educate and engage the community around sea level rise issues and how the project would help protect the vulnerable canal community from the effects of sea level rise, as well as provide an opportunity for the community to have input on the project. Community member and past outreach worker on the Tusconia Marsh project, Berenice Gonzalez, brought a report to us released by Toxis Tides to our attention that states that rising ocean levels could flood some hazardous facilities in the canal by the end of the century. We hope that we will continue to be able to work on these efforts. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Marco. Thanks for the center's work on this.
Our next speaker is Mike, followed by Barbara Salzman. Mike, you have the floor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks so much, Secretary Crowfoot and Ocean Protection Council board members and staff members. Wow, what a really inspiring suite of projects. My name is Mike Sipra. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of the Dunes. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that focuses on coastal conservation and working with the community. And I just wanted to make a little space to acknowledge OPC for providing leadership in California on environmental justice and centering environmental justice in looking at grant programs. I do want to advocate for the Wiyot Tribe's acquisition of coastal property for cultural and water quality protection. This is a historic landmark conservation project in Humboldt Bay, and your support means the world. This is an opportunity to conserve really rare habitat. And it's as Adam Cantor, my colleague, said earlier, this is a coastal gem, and reuniting this land with its people for eco-cultural restoration is making a significant commitment It's a commitment to sort of the history of this place as well as the future. And I think it really is walking the walk for the state of California to conserve land and to recognize tribes as conservation landowners. So thanks so much for your support and for all of your efforts.
Thank you, Mike.
Our next speaker is Barbara, followed by Robert Jan Roy van de Hoek. Barbara, you have the floor. Barbara, it looks like you're still on mute. There you go.
Okay, unmuted. Okay, I'm Barbara Salzman. I'm representing the Marin Audubon Society, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Tusconia Marsh project. And I wanted to first thank the staff for their favorable recommendation and review and all of their assistance, and thank the secretary and the council members for your consideration. This marsh was donated to Marin Audubon about 10 years ago, and basically until some funding opportunities came about, we didn't do much with it. Then we found out that it was eroding significantly, and so we've been quite concerned about the impact on the community for flood control as well as the bay and its resources. We own about 500 acres, and we've done about 20 marsh restoration projects, large and small. This one is the most challenging and also has the most public benefits. It's our first project that has such significant flood protection benefits for the community. And it will restore tidal marsh in current intertidal mudflats. Will beneficially reuse sediments. It has significant community involvement and benefits. Will also provide public access on top of the levee and the Bay Trail. Will be an important experience for and provide data to inform other marsh restoration projects in the Bay. And we're so thrilled to be able to have the Ocean Protection Council as a funder and a partner in this project. We have a great team, and we're anxious to get going with permitting. We have a great partnership also with the city of San Rafael. And so we thank you again for your support and look forward to continuing with this project with your funding. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara.
Our next speaker is Robert, followed by Nan Pham. Robert, you have the floor. Robert, it looks like you're still on mute. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to Nan Pham. If Robert wants to comment, please raise your hand again. Nan, it looks like you have the floor now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, my name is Young Pham, a representative from the Multicultural Center of Marin, a partner of the Audubon Society. Canal community is an underserved and disadvantaged neighborhood in Marin County. The community is home to many BIPOC residents, such as Latinx, Vietnamese, Indigenous residents. With the funding, the Multicultural Center of Marin and our partner Audubon Society is able to provide culturally appropriate engagement with community residents regarding sea level rising, flooding, and climate change. The funding will also be used to train our resilient team about the environmental changes around them and how it affects their home. Our community will benefit from the funding. On behalf of the Multicultural Center and Audubon Society and the Canal community, I want to say thank you to the Ocean Protection Council. And Douglas, our executive, want to say something.
This is Douglas Mundo. I'm the director of the Multicultural Center of Marine. Thank you, Ocean Protection Council, for supporting these efforts. And I want to thank you again, Audubon Society, our partners. And I want to say that is the right thing to do, to engage and invest as well in community engagement, because there is a really important aspect of bringing people at the beginning and during the process of implementing community projects. And we thank you for that, and I hope that your support will help us continue doing these efforts in our communities to supporting people of color and those most underserved communities to be part of the decision-making processes and support and partnership with other groups like the Marine Audubon Society and other partners that we're working. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you very much for your leadership.
Our next speaker is going to be Donna Hufford, followed by Marnie Atkins. Donna, you have the floor.
Hello, am I with you now?
Yes, you are.
Great. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Oric residents and businesses here in the Redwood National Park. I am part of a family that descends from a Yurok woman who married one of the original Oric pioneers. And our roots run deep, and our commitment to a sustainable Oric is very genuine. As a family, we've been leaders here in the Oric Community Services District, the Oric School Board, the Oric Chamber of Commerce, as well as numerous committees that have come and gone. Our park, Redwood National Park, has been here now for a little over 50 years. And of course, the state parks have been here for 100 years. This development at Bald Hill site is situated in a place that gives the tourists the feeling of being in the park. I see it as a great spot for what would be considered the gateway experience. For Oric itself has always considered itself the southern gateway, but since we don't have an official gate into the park, many people just pass by. Unfortunately, I hate to call us a severely disadvantaged community, but it is true. The town went from 2,000 people in the 50s to something like 350 or so, and businesses left and they couldn't survive with the fewer residents. But today we are seeing a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. We have the 2 remaining traditional motels are receiving a major overhaul, and having these new amenities provided at Bald Hills Road could severely help and encourage our community. We really thank you for your support on this project.
Donna, thank you for all you're doing up there.
Our next speaker is Marnie, followed by Jane Velez Mitchell, who will be our last commenter. Marnie, you have the floor.
Ooh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ooh, thank you. Thank you, Secretary Crowfoot and Ocean Protection Council members for the opportunity to provide comments on the Mu-Roth-Urwak project the Wiyot tribe wishes to undertake. Hatwatlo, Beat Nook Marnie Atkins. My name is Marnie Atkins, and I am the Daguru Lui Cultural Center Manager for the Wiyot tribe. Daguru Lui means the ongoing return of all, and this project is a step forward in returning not only land to Wiyot people, which we have been shut out of for many years in our ancestral lands, but also the return of our traditional cultural practices, our connection to our shared histories, our efforts to build a stronger and healthier community as we build a stronger and healthier landscape. We are ready to undertake this project and restore these lands to a more balanced and traditional place. We will utilize these lands to educate Wiyot people about our traditional practices and lifeways in contemporary times. By developing and offering traditional practices for Wiyot people, we will ensure the health and well-being of everyone. And it has been shown through research that culture and place-based learning and connecting opportunities support the mental, emotional health, and spiritual well-being of Native people. Further, if we provide opportunities to engage youth and adults, they are more likely to choose positive options that increase their life opportunities and healthier outcomes. Finally, as the Cultural Center Manager, I am hopeful that we will be able to welcome non-Wiyot people to the land to better educate them about Wiyot people's history, culture, language, contemporary topics, and land stewardship practices. My hope is that as a community, we will learn the best traditional ecological knowledge by both hearing, seeing, and doing this work together. Mu-Roth-Urwak is wolf's home in our language. We would like to welcome Wolf back home. Hu, thank you.
Thank you, Marnie.
And our last commenter is going to be Jane. Jane, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Secretary Crowfoot and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Wilmington is great. By contrast, I respectfully urge you to not support what I really have to say is a phony restoration of the Biona wetlands. Wholesale bulldozing of LA's last coastal wetlands is simply not restoration. Wholesale destruction of the habitat for 1,700 species, the 1 square mile habitat for 1,700 species, including endangered and threatened species who have nowhere else to go, is not restoration. And it is not a nature-based solution. There is a 20-point gentle restoration alternative being proposed that achieves all the legitimate goals of restoration. The only thing it does not do, it does not allow SoCal Gas to upgrade the crumbling gas storage facility that lies deep beneath the wetlands. That is, I think it's come to everybody's attention, the true objective of the so-called restoration. And this is why the LA City Council has urged that the SoCal gas facility under the Biona wetlands be shut down. It's similar to the Aliso Canyon facility, where a blowout several years ago created one of the worst environmental disasters in California history. You know, they're saying, oh, they're doing it for the kids. Well, recently the kids held a news conference at the wetlands, and they said, don't destroy the wetlands and kill all these animals on our account. We don't want that. We want public access now. We can fix it up and we can get in there. And we don't have to turn it into a Disneyland. We already have Disneyland. This is sacred land. We need to protect it, not bulldoze it. I thank you. Please open your ears to this because it's the truth.
And Holly, just want to confirm that's the end of public comment?
Yes.
Great. And I would just remind as we move back to the council discussion, each and every OPC meeting, we allow and invite public comment on topics related to the coast and ocean that aren't specific to agenda items. And in this meeting, that's agenda item 7. And we would really ask everybody to respect the public comment on specific agenda items, and do please keep your comments focused on that. Again, we welcome the opportunity to hear your broader thoughts at the right point in the meeting. So wanted to make that reminder. Well, listen, council, that was an inspiring set of public comments on an inspiring set of projects. Certainly would invite any questions anybody has, but we can also move to consider these projects when you are ready.
I would move Secretary Crowfoot to consider these projects, all 6 of them, excellent projects.
I'll second the motion.
Excellent. So then I just want to confirm that you are moving to adopt the proposed findings for all of the projects as recommended by staff, approving the projects as described, and then delegating to Director Gold the authority to implement the council's approval.
Yeah, I mean, delegating to Mark is always, no, it's great. Yes, doing all that, Wade. Yes.
Excellent. Then recognize you're moving that motion and the Lieutenant Governor seconding that motion. Jen, can we have a roll call?
Yes. Secretary Blumenfeld.
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Diamond.
Yes.
And Secretary Crowfoot.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Well, I know we are all excited to see these projects come to fruition and ultimately visit them and the communities that brought them to life. So again, once again, congratulations, Maria and the entire team for getting this through the council. We'll next move to agenda item 5, which is an informational item. And it is our annual Coast and Ocean Report, which is really taking form as a summary of our strategic plan and the implementation progress we've made on that plan, as well as critical issues in 2021. And if you recall, we started, almost 3 years ago, really focused on developing a 5-year strategic plan and then hewing closely to that plan and everything, all the actions that we took. And we go so far as to connect each action item on our agendas with the part of the strategic plan that we're focused on advancing. So I'm excited to invite Mark and Jen to share the update here for us.
Great. Thank you, Secretary Crowfoot. Mark, I wasn't sure if you wanted to make any comments or if I can just jump right in.
Just a brief one, because I think I'm going to have to leave before the discussion starts. So thank you, Jen, which is that we understand upfront that we really want this to be a state of the coast of the ocean. And that would mean that we would include data on biological, physical, and chemical indicators to really give us a better understanding of the status and trends of the state of our biodiversity, water quality, public access, all the things that are so important within the strategic plan. Unfortunately, due to the timing of trying to get this done in a short period of time, as well as a massive reduction in the amount of monitoring that had occurred in the last 2 years under COVID, we weren't able to meet that objective for this first time around. But you have my word that our second version, which will be a year from now, will definitely have more on the state of the coast and ocean rather than just the progress that we're making, which is quite substantial, and you'll hear about in great detail from Jen on the actual strategic plan itself. And so with that, Jen, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you, Secretary Crowfoot and members of the council. So I'm really proud to be here today to provide a summary of the strategic plan implementation progress. And as Mark mentioned, we really wanted to share this update as 2021 comes to a close. But we also recognize that there's a lot of information in this report and that you haven't had a chance to do a deep dive on the content. So I'm going to walk through the high points now, and we'll have space for discussion after my presentation. But I also want to let everyone know that we're going to make space and time during the executive director's report at our next council meeting for further discussion and feedback. I also want to note that despite challenges presented by COVID, we have really advanced incredible efforts across all of our strategic plan goals and to help protect the coast and ocean. We've spearheaded critical policy initiatives. We invested close to $30 million to build coastal resilience, increase biodiversity, promote environmental justice within our work, and support the blue economy. And as you heard earlier today, although we've had incredible success this year, there just is an imperative need for increased action. And this council has already prioritized climate resilience in its strategic plan, but the impacts that we're seeing today and the projected intensification of those impacts are amplifying our need to take bold and transformational action now. So looking ahead to 2022, we anticipate doubling down on adaptation efforts to protect California's coast and ocean by relying on you, the expertise of scientists, tribes, communities, and agency partners throughout the state, and making strategic investments that build coastal resilience into the future. So before I walk you through our strategic plan goals, I just wanted to highlight that this year, we took several really important steps to increase communication about coastal and ocean issues in California. We created a new policy and communication manager position. We're building a new website that's going to serve as the hub for coastal and ocean science, policy, and management. We increased our social media reach exponentially across all of our platforms, connecting with a far broader audience than we previously were engaging with. And we also launched several targeted outreach efforts focused on sea level rise and MPAs. So let's just dive right into the goals. Next slide, please. So goal 1 in our strategic plan is to safeguard coastal and marine ecosystems and communities in the face of climate change. And this goal really is focused, includes objectives around sea level rise and ocean acidification and hypoxia, or OAH. Next slide, please. So you heard from both me and Secretary Crowfoot about the incredible progress that has been made by the Sea Level Rise leadership team around this, developing a set of principles to align state action, and the work now to advance a work plan for implementation of those principles. We launched a lighthearted sea level rise awareness campaign that directs the public to a new state website, which is a repository of information about the challenges, solutions, and resilient success stories along the California coast. We invested $8 million to support 15 coastal resilience projects, advancing sea level rise adaptation and restoration of coastal habitats. Led by Ocean Science Trust, a panel of experts provided recommendations to enhance and standardize ocean acidification and hypoxia biological monitoring into ongoing chemical monitoring programs, building on a recent report from our Ocean Acidification and Hypoxia Science Task Force. That report and those recommendations informed an investment of $3.6 million in science-based investments for monitoring, research, and synthesis projects to enhance our understanding of OAH impacts on marine ecosystems and the aquaculture and fishing industries. And then, as you heard Secretary Crowfoot share earlier, we had unprecedented funding for coastal resilience projects and efforts in the governor's recent state budget. So we've received $500 million to the Coastal Conservancy for wetland restoration and other resilience projects, $30 million to the Coastal Commission for sea level rise planning with local governments, $11.5 million to state parks to implement its sea level rise adaptation strategy, and $100 million to OPC for ocean and coastal resilience actions and research. Next slide, please. So I just want to take a moment to highlight the work of the legislature and our agency partners in this space. So Senate Bill 1 was authored by Senate Pro Tem Atkins and signed into law by Governor Newsom, and provides tools and resources for communities to address the impacts of sea level rise, and establishes the Sea Level Rise Collaborative within OPC to provide technical assistance and funding for local and regional governments to plan and implement adaptation actions. The Coastal Commission finalized guidance, critical infrastructure guidance, which provides key considerations for successful adaptation planning along the coast, focused on transportation and water infrastructure. The Bay Conservation and Development Commission finalized its Bay Adapt Joint Platform, which is a regional adaptation strategy for San Francisco Bay that outlines guiding principles, goals and actions to help the Bay help the Bay Area adapt to a rising bay. The State Lands Commission, mandated by AB 691, is continuing to lead sea level rise assessments and adaptation planning for public trust lands, including ports. And the State Coastal Conservancy authorized funding to advance watershed and coastal habitat restoration, including a breadth of conservation and restoration projects for tidal wetlands, riparian and subtidal and dune habitats, and over 15,000 acres of land conservation to preserve fish and wildlife habitat and public access. Next slide, please. So moving on to goal 2. Advancing equity across ocean and coastal policies and actions. So this goal includes objectives to enhance engagement with California Native American tribes and communities entitled to environmental justice. Next slide, please. In 2020, funding from the Ocean Protection Council supported the launch of the Tribal Marine Stewards Network, which is made up of 4 partner tribes and has support from an additional 2 nonprofits to help administer the program. This program is modeled after successful indigenous monitoring programs in other parts of the world and aims to empower coastal tribes in California to protect, monitor, and restore cultural and natural resources within their territories. In 2021, partner tribes initiated monitoring and outreach projects focused on MPAs located within their territories. The early success of the Tribal Marine Stewards Network led the Packard Foundation to commit an additional $500,000 to the program, supplementing OPC's initial $1 million investment. And partner tribes now are beginning to focus on potential approaches to grow the scope and the scale of the network and to include more tribes. We initiated an effort to consult and collaborate with California's tribes and tribal governments on the development of a tribal engagement strategy that will provide a framework for enhanced partnership between OPC and tribes on ocean and coastal issues. This year, OPC engaged with more than 10 coastal tribes through consultations and listening sessions aimed at understanding tribal perspectives on 2 key issues: best practices for conducting outreach and engaging with tribes in a respectful and an effective manner, and tribes' priorities for coastal and ocean conservation management. Outcomes of these consultations and listening sessions are going to inform the development of a draft tribal engagement strategy. We intend to conduct additional outreach and consultation once the draft strategy is developed, and we hope to bring a final strategy to this council in mid-2022. Led by Dr. Kikanza Nuri Robbins, OPC staff completed a 10-session, 30-hour diversity, equity, and inclusion training program that was developed specifically for OPC to improve inward and outward-facing efforts to advance equity. It provided strategies for building diversity, equity, and inclusion into all of the work of the council and is informing our OPC's first ever equity plan. On the equity plan, we embarked on a process that aims to advance more equitable and comprehensive ocean and coastal science, research, policy, programs, and projects. Plan development is being informed by an environmental justice advisory group of community leaders and advocates, representative of California's diverse regions. OPC intends to bring the final equity plan to the council for consideration in mid-2022. We also just approved $7.5 million in Proposition 1 funds for coastal environmental justice projects, and I don't need to give you any additional details there. And we had a really successful first ever summer internship program where we provided undergraduate college students with an opportunity to gain experience working with coastal and ocean science policy and management efforts in California. OPC and the Bay Conservation and Development Commission's internship programs are serving as a model across CNRA agencies, and we intend to release a call for our next cohort of summer interns in early 2022. Next slide, please. Goal 3 is centered all around enhancing coastal and marine biodiversity, including marine protected areas, kelp forests, sustainable fisheries, and improving coastal and ocean water quality. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the work on the global stage. California is an official observer of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, and we've been closely tracking the development of the post-2020 biodiversity framework, which is a global agreement to halt biodiversity collapse. OPC worked closely with CNRA leadership to provide comments calling for a framework that centers equity, elevates the role of subnational governments, and includes measurable habitat and biodiversity goals and targets. These comments were summarized by Secretary Crowfoot in a video message to an audience of global leaders in October. And we heard a fantastic update from Lieutenant Governor on California becoming the first state in the nation to sign the Edinboro Declaration. On California's 30 by 30 initiative, we have been working closely with Dr. Jen Norris, CNRA's Deputy Secretary for Biodiversity and Habitat, on the coast and ocean components of the California's 30 by 30 initiative. The pathway to conserving 30% of California's coastal waters will include 16% of state waters protected within the state's MPAs, and a prioritized focus on working with federal resource managers to strengthen biodiversity conservation measures within national marine sanctuaries. Such measures would be implemented in partnership with other state and federal agencies, tribes and tribal governments, and community and coastal stakeholders. The draft pathways document is expected to be released publicly in the coming weeks and finalized in early 2022. We had 2 scientific reports that were published with OST leading the effort of working groups of our science advisory teams. These 2 scientific reports are advancing our work on marine protected areas, one that provided guidance for evaluating the MPA network for the upcoming decadal management review, and the other to better understand the role of MPAs in providing climate resilience. We have done so much work in close partnership with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and Fish and Game and others on preparing for the first adaptive management review of our MPA network. We've made incredible strides across the 4 focal areas of our management program around research and monitoring. So weaving in the baseline monitoring and the long-term monitoring projects to really get a synthesized understanding of how our marine protected areas are performing. And we've been working to increase outreach and education about this effort, and then the ongoing work to ensure that our MPAs are successful into the future. We also continue to work to make progress on adding California's MPA network to the IUCN Green List of protected and conserved areas. And we're hoping for a final decision on green listing of our network in the next year. Next slide, please. So again, in close partnership with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, we invested in research and restoration projects to improve our understanding of the drivers of kelp decline and potential restoration approaches. In the coming months, OPC and the Department of Fish and Wildlife will work closely to develop the interim action plan that we produced this year into a final kelp action plan with priorities for collaborative partnership-based action. The final kelp action plan will set the stage for the development of an ecosystem-based kelp restoration and management plan, an effort that will be led by the Department of Fish and Wildlife with support from OPC and expected to launch early next year. There's been a lot of work across state agencies to continue to address the risk of entanglement of whales and sea turtles in fishing gear. The Department of Fish and Wildlife, in response to that challenge, established the Risk Assessment and Mitigation Program that brings together scientists, managers, and industry to collectively evaluate real-time entanglement data and generate responsive management action. Overall, entanglement risks are down significantly since 2016 due to a combination of cooperation between industry and management, as well as changing ocean conditions. And OPC continues to support entanglement reduction efforts through the Dungeness Crab Task Force, the RAMP process, and pilot program design. We invested close to $2 million to support projects that will improve data for whale, turtle, and forage species and integrating that data into the risk assessment for resource managers. And we are continuing to help the Department of Fish and Wildlife eliminate drift gill nets for shark and swordfish fisheries. To date, the Drift Gill Net Transition Program has funded 24 participants, paying for the surrender and the destruction of their nets. The Council adopted a top 10 recommendations to address plastic pollution, which prioritizes innovation, advances best available science to inform decision-making, and promotes policies that advance source reduction. We funded several projects that will help develop a baseline of plastic pollution monitoring data statewide and assess the efficacy of plastic reduction strategies. Ocean Science Trust led a working group of our science advisory team to develop a report on a risk assessment framework to evaluate the impact of microplastics on marine and coastal ecosystems and on human health. This report, along with another OPC-funded project on microplastics in San Francisco Bay, are informing the statewide microplastic strategy, which will include actions to prevent microplastic pollution and identify research needs to inform future action. We've been working closely with the State Water Board and other agency partners on the draft strategy and intend to release that draft for public comment before the end of this year, with the final strategy being presented to the Council in early 2022. Next slide, please. So the last goal is goal 4, supporting ocean health through a sustainable blue economy. And this goal is really focused on sustainable fisheries and aquaculture and offshore wind. Next slide, please. So OPC reauthorized its contribution to the California Fisheries Fund this year and transferred administration to California FarmLink. Reauthorization of this fund provides a continued investment for California's small-scale fishers to maintain their sustainability and viability in the face of changing climate conditions. The aquaculture leadership team finalized a set of aquaculture principles to align near-term state actions around decision-making for aquaculture development. And we're now working on near-term implementation efforts. The principles are also serving as a foundation for the statewide aquaculture action plan, and that will provide a comprehensive, consistent, and science-based framework for sustainable marine aquaculture in California. A preliminary draft of the action plan for agency review should be available to us by the end of this year, with completion of the plan in 2023. For offshore wind, we have been working very closely with our partners at the California Energy Commission, the Coastal Commission, State Lands Commission, and the Department of Fish and Wildlife to accelerate research projects to understand the potential impacts of offshore wind on natural and cultural resources and fisheries. We are working to ensure that the best available science informs the Coastal Commission's consistency determinations on the central and north coast wind call areas next year. Next slide. And so looking ahead to 2022, addressing the impacts of climate change on California's coast and ocean will continue to be a top priority for OPC in 2022. We'll have an ongoing focus on sea level rise and ocean acidification, including inventory of coastal wetland, beach, rocky intertidal, and eelgrass habitats. Subsequent to that—
Hey, Jen, I sorry to interrupt you. Your audio just went very distant.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Thank you. This is a problem I have. I was hoping I was going to be able to get through. My apologies. So looking ahead to 2022, we're going to continue to, I'm not sure where you lost me, so I'll just start. We're going to—
We just lost you for a half a sentence, your most recent sentence. We're hearing you fine.
Okay, great. So subsequent to completion of an inventory of our coastal habitats, we're going to conduct a habitat vulnerability assessment using the latest sea level rise model projections. And we're going to work with the sea level rise leadership team to ensure that all of the investments in coastal resilience planning and projects are strategic, leveraged, and complementary. We're going to work very closely with the Department of Fish and Wildlife on building climate-ready fisheries, understanding the role of MPAs as a tool for climate refugia, and increasing marine ecosystem resilience. We plan to work with the California Quality Monitoring Council to initiate the development of a model coastal habitat and water quality monitoring program. And we will continue to work very closely with our agency partners to advance communications about the upcoming MPA decadal management review. Next year, we'll bring completion of several high priority initiatives, as I described earlier. So completion of the tribal engagement strategy and the equity plan, and investments to address plastic pollution and fill any identified data gaps related to the microplastic strategy. We will continue to implement our aquaculture principles, and we are going to conduct outreach on the draft aquaculture action plan starting in summer of next year. And finally, we will continue to invest in studies on the potential offshore wind impacts to natural and cultural resources and fisheries, and we'll be working really closely with agency partners on creating the offshore wind strategic plan that was mandated by Assembly Bill 525. So despite the considerable obstacles that were posed by COVID this year, California's just made considerable progress in efforts to protect our coast and ocean. However, increasing pace and threat of climate impacts, it really is driving the need for immediate action. So in 2022, we're going to continue to fund critical actionable science. And our top priorities will be on funding projects and creating policies that will make our coast more climate resilient, provide equitable coastal access and influence for everyone, and protect biodiversity in a manner that enables Californians and our coast and ocean waters to thrive. Next slide, please. And as Mark flagged in his opening comments, our future coast and ocean reports Will include physical, chemical, and biological indicators to assess the state of coastal and ocean biodiversity, water quality, and access in California. And this will really help us prioritize our action and investment going forward. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Jen, thanks so much for that well-organized and thorough presentation, and huge thanks to the OPC team. Remarkable the number of fronts that you all have moved on in partnership with other state agencies, and really have a lot to show for 2021 in terms of the progress that we made. Totally agree with you that I think we all find it sobering the accelerating pace of climate change, and all of our work obviously is within that context. But just want to pause and really express appreciation to the entire OPC team for all of the work done this year, particularly among the trying circumstances of navigating this global pandemic. I want to open it up to any questions that any of our council members have. Jordan.
Thank you, Secretary Crowfoot. First, Jen, thank you so much for that overview. And just to echo Secretary Crowfoot's gratitude for the work that you and the entire team has done. And just as a reminder, OPC has a staff of 15, and you guys accomplished just a remarkable amount for a relatively small team. So thank you so much. Second, just a couple points of emphasis. One, harkening back to the last action item, I just wanted to say as an overarching matter kind of for next year, I really do think the projects we just approved, the 7.5 million that we just allocated, the emphasis on multi-benefit and kind of integrated holistic planning that goes far beyond kind of the ocean and coast, and really truly kind of the emphasis on community benefits. To the extent that we can just continue to use that as a model, I think you guys really have set a standard. And to the extent that we can continue to infuse that throughout the funding and other kind of project creation, I think that will be really wonderful. I was truly struck by the projects when I first read them on just the sheer number of benefits. We often say multi-benefit and it just means two. And you guys really went for, really across the board. I also want to call out the emphasis on the fact that the jobs and training benefits really were focused in the area, and really the emphasis on partnerships and collaboration, et cetera. So to the extent that that can continue to be a point of emphasis in a model, it'd be fantastic. And then one just minor note is on the offshore wind front. I know there are challenges with, and especially in the wake of AB 525, there are questions about how to continue to help support, and there's a lot being figured out on kind of how things are going to move forward. But just one note to the question about how we set kind of the principles and priorities for offshore winds, and whether that's the Energy Commission and they're leading kind of the targets for this summer or the strategic planning through next summer. It'd just be so wonderful to see OPC continue to help lead that discussion. But made a point would essentially just be thank you for all the work that you guys have done under incredibly trying circumstances.
Thanks so much for making those points. Mike.
Ditto for Councilmember Diamond's comments about the scope and depth of what OPC staff have accomplished. I think this is my 7th year as a council member, and I'm just blown away by how much you guys have accomplished. Really impressive, and it's a great vision for what's going to be done going forward. A couple of things. I want to echo Jordan's comments about thinking in sociocultural, socioeconomic terms, and as part of the metrics for ocean health, such that we're tracking benefits not just on a project basis, but on a coastal basis. And that, as I will take our executive director's word that there will be a report that is inclusive and specific about the state of the ocean and coast and what that means. And in terms of, I'll say, the physical sciences as well as the social sciences and social and cultural benefits, economic benefits. I also want to make one other point about access, both in terms of equity and addressing environmental justice issues, access to the coast and ocean, that it relevant to, as I mentioned, the Hollister Ranch access program, but I think access writ large on the coast, it may behoove OPC and the state to explore having guidelines on how to assess the potential impacts of access. It's an issue that has come up in the Hollister Ranch situation, but also elsewhere, where you have areas that are, I'll say, evolving from resource extraction, particularly in the northern part of the state, to more tourist-focused economic activity. And the question of, I'll say, more access to the coast could potentially pose issues of other kinds of impacts related to that access. And I think it would behoove us to look at how those kind of impacts should be evaluated and have a consistent framework for doing that, whether across the state.
Thank you, Mike. So we're going to shift to public comment now, and I'd once again ask members of the public, our community-based partners who are joining. Item 7 is when we hear your input on topics not specifically related to each of these agenda items. So I really would appreciate your consideration, professional courtesy, that if you have an item not related specifically to the update on the strategic plan, that you hold off until item 7. We will very much be paying attention and listening closely on that agenda item because we want to make it through this meeting to get to that agenda item. So once again, Holly, let's move to public comment. And if you would like to be heard on this update to the strategic plan, please do raise your hand using the button on the bottom of the Zoom screen, or if you're calling by phone, you can press #2.
Thank you, Chair Crowfoot. Our first speaker is going to be Marcia Hanscom, followed by Ashley Eagle Gibbs. Marcia, you have the floor.
Great. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Marcia Hanscom. I'm speaking on behalf of the Sierra Club, and I'd like to refer you all to page 8. There's a line that talks about $500 million that was given to the State Coastal Conservancy for wetland restoration from your council, and other coastal resilience projects that prioritize nature-based solutions. And I want to wed that with what you have in your goals for 2022 at the end of this report relating to protecting biodiversity. And I think that Council Members Brown's comments are really exactly relevant to what I want to bring up. I have a concern about 2 big coastal construction projects that are probably going to be coming to you for funding for next year. And They are really masquerading as restorations, but they're projects that would benefit both oil and gas operations while obliterating wildlife habitat and destroying grasslands, wetlands, soils that are storing and sequestering carbon, the exact opposite of nature-based solutions that the governor has stated he's committed to. And they don't protect biodiversity. They start and create something new. So one is at the Los Cerritos wetlands, where drilling of 120 new oil wells is at the heart of this counterfeit restoration on the coast of Long Beach and Seal Beach. And the other one is on the coast of Los Angeles at the Ballena wetlands, where installing new fossil fuel infrastructure for a methane gas refining and storage operations drives a really ecologically illiterate project. So we hope that you will be looking at these projects and not supporting ones that are not completely nature-based solutions. Thank you.
Okay, next comment.
All right, our next commenter is going to be Gilly Lyons, followed by Chris Koo. Gilly, you have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, great, thank you. Hello, Secretary Crowfoot and OPC members. My name is Gilly Lyons with the Pew Charitable Trusts. And I just wanted to thank you so much for the opportunity to offer comments today, which I'll be providing on behalf of both Pew and Audubon. First and foremost, we wanted to thank all of you, and especially OPC staff, for the tremendous work and progress reflected in the annual Coast and Ocean Report. OPC's strategic plan, as you know, includes many ambitious and critically important goals, objectives, and targets. And the annual report is a great overview of just how much has already been accomplished toward meeting those goals. One of the strategic plan targets that we wanted to highlight today is protecting and restoring the state's eelgrass resources, specifically the preservation of 15,000 acres of existing eelgrass beds and the restoration or creation of 1,000 new acres by 2025. In a comment letter submitted under this agenda item, we note several OPC-supported projects and efforts either underway or already completed that contribute to meeting this eelgrass protection goal. We're grateful to OPC staff for all of their work on these initiatives, and also want to acknowledge the 6 new projects just approved under the previous agenda item. The many benefits associated with these Prop 1 projects will also, in some cases and places, help eelgrass as well. We'd also like to flag some opportunities going forward to continue making steady progress toward the strategic plan's eelgrass goals. These could include creating an implementation guide for the California Eelgrass Mitigation Policy, or KEMP, to help improve compliance with the KEMP, ensuring that the aquaculture plan that's currently in development incorporates pathways for achieving eelgrass protection and avoidance of impact, and developing a request for proposals for on-the-ground restoration and tidal wetland acquisition projects that directly benefit eelgrass. We look forward to opportunities to discuss these and other ideas in the coming months, and to working with you and OPC staff in support of continued progress toward protecting eelgrass and other coastal and marine habitats. Thanks very much.
Thank you for that specific feedback.
Next speaker is Chris Koo, followed by Ashley Eagle Gibbs. Chris, you have the floor. Chris, it looks like you're still muted. There you
Hi,
go.
can you hear me now? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yes, referring to the annual report about the wetlands, supporting the projects for equitable access and protecting biodiversity. I mean, no one's been able to just answer clearly about the sea level rise. I mean, the impacts would be worse if the state allows specifically this project at Ballena wetlands to proceed. The creek sides or the levees are now protecting the habitat. And digging out more than 2 million cubic yards of soil, it will be lowering these coastal lands, which will make it more vulnerable to sea level rise in surrounding homes and roads and any other infrastructures. So no one's been able to just answer a simple question. By digging out millions of yards of soil, how are you protecting the area, and how does it lessen the problem? It's just a physical issue here. You're digging it all out. So of course it's going to be vulnerable to sea level rise. So why are they doing this? And the other speaker was talking about digging new oil oil wells. And, the public clearly sees what the agenda is behind all this. And I understand that, different agencies have been just a proponent of taking out, removing the wetlands. And, we've seen local papers with SoCal gas advertisements on a weekly basis saying how important gas is when we're trying to phase out fossil fuel. And all this talk about all these fancy words about, climate change and biodiversity. I don't know what you guys are talking about. You're approving things that are actually going to worsen all these issues, yet that you purport to want to support and protect. So the public is very, very frustrated. We're talking to people all the time, and they don't understand what's going on, why there's a lack of logic going on. So please.
All right.
Next speaker is going to be Ashley Eagle Gibbs, followed by Jared Voskuhl. Ashley, you have the floor.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Good afternoon, Secretary Crowfoot, staff, and council members. My name is Ashley Eagle Gibbs, and I am the Legal and Policy Director at the Environmental Action Committee of West Marin, or EAC. I'm speaking today on behalf of both EAC and Audubon. Mr. Gold and Ms. Eckerly, thank you very much for the executive directors and the annual coast and ocean reports. I wanted to speak briefly today on the Aquaculture Action Plan. Anna Weinstein with Audubon, and I have been participating in the Community and Science Listening Group sessions, renamed from Advisory Group. I have been on as alternate. We would like to raise continued concerns related to the process and transparency, which are also shared by additional conservation NGOs. First, we understand that a draft is nearing completion, but this unfortunately puts the cart before the horse. The listening group has never seen a scope of work, an outline, or a set of objectives for the useful work that the plan is supposed to achieve. Specifically, NCEAS should get and meaningfully incorporate into the advisory group's feedback on a scope of work and outline prior to completing a draft. And once a draft has been completed, it's unfortunately too late for meaningful input. Second, aquaculture is a very important topic for our state and is of interest to many. We would like to encourage NCEAS, Sea Grant, and OPC to move forward with the broadest and most inclusive public participation possible, including input from growers of all sorts, all sizes, NGOs, the public, and state agencies once the draft report is released, which it sounds like it will be next year. We are encouraged that a leadership team has been formed and will be meeting again soon. Coastal Commission and other agency staff who have been the leads on permitting and integrating best management practices, permit conditions, and ecological principles into permit review are essential to the development of a useful plan. So we want the aquaculture principles and action plan to serve as effective aquaculture guidance, but at this time we are unclear of the intentions of the plan. We'd be happy to discuss this further, and I will be sending a copy of these comments to OPC, Sea Grant, and NCEAS. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next speaker is going to be Patricia McPherson, and it looks like we lost the one after. So if you still want to have a comment, please put your hand back up. Patricia, you have the floor. Patricia, you're still, there you go.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. I'm just juggling things on my computer. Thank you. Patricia McPherson. I'm president of Grassroots Coalition. Key to our coastline is the protection of unique coastal freshwater aquifers and predominantly seasonal freshwater wetlands. Biono Wetlands Ecological Reserve is just this. It's now a very rare, uniquely coastal situated wetland, freshwater wetland, with multiple freshwater underlying aquifers that are classified as potential drinking water by the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board. Grassroots Coalition, Sierra Club, Food and Water Watch, and many other groups have been working to protect Biona's rare ecosystems for over 20 years, including restoring the fresh water that has been being diverted, wasted, and thrown into the ocean or the sanitary sewer by both the Playa Vista Development Project and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's unpermitted drainage of the wetlands for over 20 years. The California Coastal Commission, in tandem with prevailing litigation by Grassroots Coalition against both Playa Vista and CDFW, has now required the sealing of those illegal drains, and seasonal rainwater ponding has returned to the drainage impacted areas. Biono Wetlands Reserve was approved and is registered as a Title 14, Section 630 non-marine ecological reserve, having its specifically approved purposes and goals. The freshwater and salt marsh natural resources of Baiona lead the protective language and include its landmass as key in the adjacent wildlife corridors. Key also is the protection to the endangered Belding savanna sparrow and its pickleweed habitat. The sealing of the illegal drains has allowed for ponding to reoccur, and pickleweed growth has expanded across the area. We have done, within the past 5 years, an enormous amount of restoration by that alone in restoring Baiona's own natural fresh water to it and disallowing the diversion. Thank you very much.
All right, Holly, is that the conclusion of public comment?
Looks like I got Jared, who I lost before. So one last comment. Jared, you have the floor.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. This is Jared Voskel, the Manager of Regulatory Affairs for CASA, the California Association of Sanitation Agencies. CASA wants to congratulate the OPC for their progress in 2021 and convey our appreciation for your inspirational leadership across all of these issues and the ones our Lieutenant Governor mentioned at the beginning of today. Our member agencies have been active on a couple of items that were mentioned this afternoon, and I wanted to remark about those. First, related to microplastics, we have a series of members along the coast working with the OPC, SCORP, and SFEI to collect samples from various places in the treatment train and our discharges to better understand wastewater treatment removal efficiencies. And we've all been really energized by this work and have appreciated the collaboration. We're getting to utilize brand new standardized methods, and it's great to assist your work, partner together, and advance this field of research with the state. We're looking forward to the strategy that's coming out in the next month or so. That's part of SB 1263. CASA sponsored that legislation in 2018, and we're looking forward to the recommendations that advance from it. The second item is on ocean acidification and hypoxia. We have members in Southern California who are partnering with SCORP on the development of the ocean acidification model. We really appreciated the OPC's funding of more research this past June, as well as the uncertainty analyses workshops this past spring. And our members are convening internally to identify how we may support your efforts and simultaneously pursue answers to our members' questions and inquiries, especially as it pertains to the conclusions and policies that may proceed from that research. So to close, we look forward to collaborating further in 2022 and supporting your efforts. And thank you again to all the council members and the OPC staff for your leadership.
Thank you, Jared. And as we move away from public comment and back to the council, I just want to once again thank the OPC staff for tremendous work over the last year, and just repeat what Jen Eckerly said in the beginning of her presentation, which is we'll hold some space in the executive director's report during the first meeting in 2022 to answer additional questions or discuss this update more after you've had a chance to delve into it, if that's what you decide to do. So let's move on to agenda item 6, which is our consent items. And these are fairly minor items that we add to the consent calendar. They do require council approval and typically wouldn't require any conversation, but we certainly welcome any questions or requested discussion that council members have on them. There are 2 items on our consent calendar today. The first is consideration of authorization to disperse funding in support of the draft conservation plan for the commercial California Dungeness crab fishery. And this is to fund the CEQA analysis that's required to complete the Habitat Conservation Plan, or the HCP, for this fishery. As we know, OPC and Department of Fish and Wildlife and the crab fishery, the commercial fishery and conservation groups are all working together to enable this fishery and to reduce any unintended consequences or impacts from the fishery. The second item is consideration of authorization to disperse additional funds to the Big Canyon Habitat Restoration Project in Upper Newport Bay. And this is a minor budget augmentation to a previously approved Prop 1 grant to the restoration project in Upper Newport Bay to ensure completion of the final project design, engineering, and permitting. And we don't have prepared presentations because, of course, this is a consent agenda, but should any council members have questions, please do raise them at this time, and our OPC staff can answer questions you may have. And if you don't have questions, I would invite a motion to approve both of these items on our consent agenda today.
So moved.
Thank
Second,
you, Lieutenant Governor. And then,
second,
excellent. Appreciate that. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent items. Again, authorization to disperse funds in support of the draft conservation plan for the Dungeness crab fishery, and authorization to disperse additional funds for the Big Canyon Habitat Restoration Project. Jen, can you call the roll?
Yes, Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis.
Aye.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
aye.
Councilmember Diamond.
Aye.
And Secretary Crowfoot.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Let's then move on to the agenda item number 7, which is public comment on non-agenda items. And again, this is an opportunity for members of the public to provide us input on any manner of topic you would like that impacts, of course, the coast and ocean. So let's turn to Holly for public comment.
Our first speaker is going to be Walter Lamb, followed by Suzanne Cumming. Walter, you have the floor.
Thank you, council members. I'm Walter Lamb, representing the Biodiversity Land Trust. And I want to say, listening to that report, agenda item 5, all of your goals are things that I care very deeply about as a parent. Especially biodiversity, climate change, sea level rise, not just public access, but equitable access, environmental justice. And when I think of environmental justice, I think not only of making sure that everyone has access to the coast and nature areas, but also access to career paths in those fields, right? I think we come on these meetings and we all know that it's not as diverse as we'd like it to be. And that starts with true equitable access. Now, I also want to say it's clear from the responses to comments that there's a little bit of, I don't want to use the word animosity towards the folks who volunteer their time to work on the biowetlands. I've been a volunteer for about 20 years. I volunteered over 15,000 hours to this cause. I read every page of the draft EIR. And I think what you're hearing from the public is concern that the narrative doesn't match the science. We've got an older project that was designed, before sea level rise and climate change really had taken on the right level of urgency. And it seems like it's being repackaged purely from a marketing perspective. And so just on 2 issues, sea level rise, my concern about sea level rise isn't because someone told me there was an issue. It's because the habitat maps show it's an issue. And my concern about access isn't because somebody told me that there's a lack of access. We've offered to bring kids from the inner city to the wetlands, to different areas, and we've been expressly told no. And so I guess the way I'd leave it is, can you help us with a better way to engage? I mean, I know 2 people have already dropped off the meeting, right? We've got the comments at the end. What's a better way to engage with you to have fact-based discussion about these issues that we all seem to agree are so important, but we've got concerns about the implementation and the engineering design of this particular project? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter, and just want to appreciate you using this item. I really view this item on our agenda item as an opportunity to really discuss this project and or comments and concerns that folks have. So you very much have my attention, and I take that to heart. So I appreciate that. Next public comment, Holly.
Next public comment will be coming from Suzanne, followed by Marcia Hanscom. Suzanne, you have the floor.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Cumming. I'm speaking as a member of Sierra Club and Defend Bayona about the Bayona wetlands in Los Angeles County. I agree with everything Walter Lamb said. I'm sure you've heard about how there can be equitable access now through the beautiful Fiji Way Gate. And you've heard the indigenous voices speaking on behalf of the gentle restoration, no bulldozing alternative. I'd like to focus on sea level rise. Please note that the state certified restoration plan, the bulldozing plan, openly acknowledges extensive loss of critical wetlands habitats due to sea level rise. As you've probably heard over the past year, The EIR used improper flood risk standards. Please see pages 271 to 275 of the 1,242-page draft EIR. These pages show the wetlands will disappear over time. They'll turn into mud flats. The claims that this wetlands would be inundated if they did not do this bulldozing plan are not true, because tide gates can easily be adjusted for further protection. If another tide gate is needed, then that would be about a $2 million, not a $250 million project. And that bulldozing plan would alter the habitat so it's not suitable for many of the species the state is supposedly protecting. The bulldozing plan runs directly counter to our governor's directives on climate change, sea level rise, biodiversity, and equitable access. Again, please support the General Alternative 20-point plan, the nature-based solution. Thanks.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Our next speaker is going to be Marcia, followed by Richard Sadowski. Marcia, you have the floor.
Thank you, honorable council members and Secretary Crowfoot. Since some of you did attend the Glasgow meetings and I heard you talk about that, you likely saw that the new information about how horrible methane gas is in terms of contributing to climate impacts caused numerous countries to sign a new letter supporting stopping using this fossil fuel. In my view, all efforts at Biona on the LA coast should be on closing this gas storage facility and supporting public access for all now to this state reserve that has been public since 2003, yet public access for all is being withheld pending a 9-year construction project that is being called a restoration when it is not. In fact, the proposed removal of the river levees on Biona Creek, combined with excavating more than 2 million cubic yards of soil, would be the opposite of what is needed to protect residents, businesses, roads, and habitats, inviting the ocean in when we are attempting to protect coastal areas from sea level rise. This makes no sense to do it in this way. There is no other project on the California coast I'm aware of where such a nonsensical plan is in the works. And I do wish that Senator Ben Allen and the EPA Secretary Jared Blumenfeld were still here to listen to the general public comments. Putting these comments at the end of your meeting causes many people to not be able to participate. And so we'd like to ask you to please consider scheduling general public comments at the beginning of the meeting, like some of the other agencies like the Coastal Commission and others do. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia, and we'll definitely consider that. I appreciate that suggestion.
Our next speaker is going to be Richard Sadowski, followed by Chris Koo. Richard, you have the floor.
Thank you. Richard Sadowski, Homefront, EJ, Morro Bay. I would just like to kind of follow up on the beginning of the meeting. First of all, the overview on COP26, that was really helpful. COP26 got a lot of bad press and, you know, that there wasn't much going on. So it was really helpful to get an update, and it was actually, there's some encouragement there. I'd like to kind of follow up also on Mr. Walter Lamb's EJ assessment, where the access to career paths. I think that's so important that we look at, like the Wilmington project, for instance, in the middle schools. You know, maybe the OPC can kind of work and collaborate, and maybe having a like coastal schools like the Los Osos Middle School and Wilmington have a cross-pollination of information where, you know, they could look at how an estuary, working in the estuary and Morro Bay estuary, and maybe have students from Wilmington or from Morro Bay see some of the projects going on in Wilmington. I think that learn by doing, you know, projects like that are very valuable, and there's never a waste when you invest into the future of these young people that are, you know, just to educate and you know, teach them the importance of what's going on to our climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And I just would make note that actually Senator Allen is here and listening into public comment. I think he's turned his camera off so we don't have to watch him eat lunch. We're trying to eat lunch and meet at the same time. But Senator Allen, thanks for sticking with us here through the end. And Holly, let's move to next public comment.
All right, our last speaker is going to be Chris Koo. Chris, you have the floor.
Hi there. Yes, I spoke a little earlier, but since we know that Senator Allen is with us, we really, as a member of the public, would like to get an answer just about just a very basic question. When you dig out so much land, 2 million cubic yards of soil, how does that protect the wetlands? When you lower something, how does it make the sea level issue, issue protected? So that's just a physical physics right there. Please give us an answer. We'd love to hear that. And the public wants to be involved, and thank you for acknowledging that you might work on some newer ways to allow the public to participate where the timing is a little bit more efficient. I've heard many folks, colleagues and folks who are interested in saving the wetlands say they just can't participate. They never know when they're going to come on. And so that would be really appreciated. And the public is has a lot of sort of distrust too, because we've been on calls where the director of the Fish and Wildlife actually proposed to build luxury homes, and that was shot down. We're happy to see that, but we're very worried about our leaders who are supposed to protect the nature and ecology and biodiversity is thinking that way. So we're very nervous out here. We're trying to participate, and we do work in terms of following up with the Biona wetlands, at least in Los Angeles County. And we follow this Flickr account, which proves on a daily basis, weekly basis, of the thriving nature, wildlife, biodiversity at the wetlands. They're beautiful photos of 1,700 different kinds of species and wildlife and plants and animals and insects and butterflies and everything. It is there. It's been thriving. All that talk about that it's just a bunch of weeds, it's absolute nonsense. We see these photos every day, every week. So we have the confidence to say it's thriving now. Please protect it and stop the digging up of the wetlands. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just acknowledge that, as long as we have OPC meetings, we will have an opportunity on the agenda for comments on this project or any other. I think just an observation, one of the challenges we have as it relates to, concerns raised in this portion of the meeting is, we are not a regulatory body. This specific project is not under jurisdiction of the OPC. As I understand it, there's a fairly involved and lengthy process around consideration of that project, as well as current legal challenges. So once again, totally respect the prerogative that members of the public have to come and voice concerns on this project or any other, but there are certainly limitations in terms of this body and OPC on that project. And frankly, just as chair, I really want to keep us focused on moving our strategic plan forward. So just want to share comments there in the interest of being constructive. We are to the end of our meeting. I do want to mention our arrangements for the next meeting, which will be held on February 23rd from 1 to 4 p.m. The location remains to be determined. We do have reserved our auditorium in our new natural resources headquarters here in Sacramento if we are able to gather safely in person. But obviously we have this virtual platform as an option as well. Huge thanks to you all for tuning in, those members of the public. Lieutenant Governor, big thanks for your leadership on the OPC. We'll continue to work on these issues, of course, and see you a little bit down the road as you cycle back in. But Senator Allen, Council Members Brown and Diamond, Brenda Sheldon on behalf of Secretary Blumenfield, many thanks. Happy holidays and Happy New Year, and we'll see you again early in the new year.